See, the time is 9 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started with our work study, our study meeting today, our work session, I should say. So if we could start out, Connie, if you could call the roll.
Bates.
Here.
Mangum.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Paulson.
Present.
Satterfield. Swanson.
Here.
Dahlquist.
Here. Okay, thank you. We'll roll right into the agenda here. It looks like item number 2 is American Falls FFA Ag Issues Team presentation. We've got former American Falls Mayor Mark Badia here that's now with the school district. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor, Superintendents, and guests. The American Falls Ag Issues Team has a long history with the Pocatello City Council. I think, Connie, this is probably like the 8th or 9th year that we've been here. We really appreciate the opportunity that you give these students to present the different issue every year. This year, the issue is the rescission of the Clinton administration 2001 roadless rule. And they're going to present it as a court case. And Ag Issues is not designed to tell you what decision you need to make. It's designed to inform you equally on both sides, that you can make your own decision as to which side of the issue that you stand on. These students have presented to both the House and Senate resource committees, State Affairs Senate Committee. This is their 12th public presentation, and it's always interesting, depending on the group that they speak to, one side really likes this argument and the other side really likes that argument. So 2 distinct arguments. They'll present it as a court case, and I would be remiss if I didn't introduce my mother. I think this is the very first FFA event that she's actually seen the students present in, but Helen Badia. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our judge, Lily Cardona, and she'll introduce her teammates. We do have one member on the team who's not with us, so we have a substitute, and she won't be hard to figure out who that is.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lily Cardona, and I will be representing your judge today. And over on my right, for our prosecution attorney, we have Brianna McLean. And then for the witnesses, we have Edwin Fortunell and Lizzie Povey. And then on my left, for our prosecution attorney, we have Noelle Cummins. And then for our witnesses, we have Morgan Munnan, which is substituting Gabe Taylor today, which he is not here today. And then we have Riley Thompson. So we'll begin. In the heart of Idaho's forest, where silence once stretched for miles, one question echoes. Are we protecting the land or locking it away? This court convenes for the people versus the roadless rule rescission. At issue is the USDA's decision to repeal the 2001 roadless rule, which protected 58.5 million acres of national forests from road construction and logging. The court notes the rule began from one of the largest public participation efforts in Forest Service history, over 600 meetings and 1.6 million comments. Adopted in the final months of the Clinton administration, the rule aimed to help preserve remaining underdeveloped forests by limiting new roads, logging, and extractive uses. Since then, has faced repeated legal and administrative challenges, reflecting tension between the federal conservation policy and state-level authority. The plaintiffs argue rescission undermines environmental protections and tribal sovereignty. The defense argues it is necessary for forest health, economic opportunities, and state flexibility. Counselors, you may proceed.
Your Honor, since 2001, the roadless rule has protected nearly 1/3 of our national forest system, 58.5 million acres. These lands supply clean water to 60 million Americans and support more than 1,600 species. The impacts reach far beyond policy. My hometown of American Falls sits near the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, often described as the last nearly intact temperate ecosystem on Earth. Roadless protections preserve wildlife corridors for grizzly bears, elk, and wolves. They also stabilize headwaters feeding the Snake River Basin, shaping water security for downstream agriculture communities, including Howard County. The rule balance preservation and sustainable use. In contrast, the 2025 resolution bypasses science, weakens NEPA standards, and erodes public trust. Through testimony, we will show that this action undermines legal protections, diminishes tribal consultation, and elevates profit over stewardship.
Your Honor, while the roadless rule was visionary, it now restricts effective management. USDA's 2025 review identified over 60 million acres of land at high wildfire risk due to decades of undermanagement. National policies created broad conservation goals but overlooked regional field load differences. In southeastern Idaho, dense conifer growth and insect-infested stands threaten wildlife corridors and surrounding agricultural communities with increasingly severe fires. For communities like American Falls, resilience requires adaptive, science-based management, targeted thinning, fire break access, and responsible use of forest resources. The rescission restores local flexibility, giving experts the tools to reduce hazards and maintain forest health. It also enables thinning, road maintenance, and mineral access needed for renewable energy infrastructure. This is not environmental rollback, it is modernization.
Thank you, counsel. The defense may call its first witness, but as the debate takes root, so does the divide. To some, the rule is a shield, to others, a shackle.
The defense calls Dr. Riley Thompson, USDA Forest Service Deputy Director. Dr. Thompson, please explain the rationale behind rescinding the 2001 roadless rule.
The 2001 rule imposed uniform restrictions across 58 million acres without considering regional ecology. In the West, this led to fuel buildup and heightened wildfire risk. Our 2025 assessment found thousands of miles of inaccessible fire lines, failing culverts, and unmaintained roads, delays that hindered rapid response. In southeastern Idaho, limited access complicated cross-jurisdictional fire coordination and watershed management near towns like American Falls. Rescission restores flexibility for states and local managers to reduce fuel loads and protect forests and farmlands. Idaho's 2008 rule already showed conservation and active management can coexist. Research shows areas treated with thinning and prescribed burns, both requiring limited road access, experience 60% fewer severe wildfires. This change allows managers to act early before problems escalate.
GAO found emergency fuel reduction projects were already allowed. Are you saying those tools were inadequate?
Permitted, yes, but slow. Multiple reviews delayed urgent work for months while fires spread. Between 2010 and 2020, over 1,400 projects were proposed in roadless areas. Only 18% were completed.
Didn't the Forest Service already have exclusions for small thinning projects?
Yes, but only for limited treatments. Current conditions include beetles, heavy fuels, and emerging fire corridors that require faster action. This enables science-based response, not reduced oversight.
Your 2024 audit showed that 37% of thinning projects failed due to funding. Isn't that the real issue?
Funding is a part of it, but flexibility helps prioritize high-risk zones when resources are limited. Without it, critical work stays stalled.
So you're trading oversight for speed.
We're trading paralysis for preparedness. Forests deserve active stewardship, not caution that results in inaction.
The prosecution calls Councilwoman Lizzie Povey of the Nez Perce tribe. Councilwoman, how has this policy shift affected the Nez Perce community?
Your Honor, for the Nez Perce people, these lands are not just geography, they are our identity. The roadless rule protected sacred watersheds, huckleberry meadows, and cedar forests that hold our stories. Within months, the new regulatory climate allowed road access that previously required deeper analysis. Since the recession, we've seen permits fast-tracked for mineral exploration in places like Simonite, at the headwaters of the East Fork of the South Fork Salmon River, where our ancestors fished for millennia. When mining runoff enters those waters, it doesn't only damage habitat, it desecrates memory and history. The USDA may say it welcomes discussion, but true consultation requires consent and partnership, not notice after decisions are made.
Cross-examination.
Councilwoman, the Stibonite Gold Project's review began before the rescission. Isn't it unfair to blame this policy change?
It began earlier, yes, but the repeal removed protections that slowed approval. Within months, the new regulatory climate allowed road access that previously required deeper analysis. The difference is timing and accountability. Our people now learn of these changes after bulldozers arrive.
The USDA has pledged to expand tribal code stewardship and consultation funding. Isn't that progress?
Progress on paper does not repair poisoned rivers. The GAO 2022 review found over half of federal agencies still miss minimum consultation timelines. Being invited to the table means little if the decisions are already made.
Some argue resource development brings needed jobs. Doesn't economic opportunity matter?
Opportunity matters, but not when it extracts more than it gives. True opportunity builds capacity within our own community, not dependency on outside investors. We support renewable energy projects, forest restoration work, and youth science training that honor our sovereignty while strengthening local economies. Logging roads and mining pits do not build futures, they erase them.
Powerful words, but can preservation alone sustain the people that live within these lands?
The defense calls Miss Morgan London timber and resource economist. Miss London, what are the economic benefits of rescinding the roadless rule?
The economic benefits are substantial. Forestry and logging wages run about 20% above the rural average. National estimates project up to 50,000 new jobs from expanded timber and mineral access. In many counties, timber revenue funds school and emergency services, so even modest increases can be transformative. Minerals like copper and cobalt are critical for electric vehicles, wind turbines, and solar panels, and happen to be concentrated in roadless regions. The roadless rule restricted access to these resources, increasing reliance on imports and weakening national security.
Cross-examination.
Cal Matters reports that logging old growth can worsen fire intensity by drying soil and opening canopies. How does that square with your claim that logging promotes forest health?
Poorly managed logging can cause harm, but that's not what's being proposed. Sustainable forestry relies on selective thinning, not clear cutting. Removing dense underbrush and smaller trees reduces competition and strengthens the remaining stands against pests and drought. It's about balance, not exploitation.
Are you suggesting a broad commercial harvest to protect this town?
Fire management isn't limited to city edges. Rural communities and key watersheds also need protection. Selective thinning can slow fire spreads and supports strategic fire breaks miles from developed areas.
The Wilderness Society reported that fewer than 2% of roadless acres were ever proposed for harvest. Doesn't the decision risk overcorrecting?
That 2% reflects stalled potential projects. Even small harvest areas support sawmills, trucking, and maintenance industries. The key is predictability. Businesses can't invest when policy shifts every decade.
Of your projected 50,000 jobs, how many are seasonal versus long-term?
Roughly 60% would be permanent jobs, including mechanics, logistics, processing, and restoration. Timber and mining ripple through rural economies. When families have a steady income, schools strengthen and communities stabilize.
But your model omits the $450 billion recreation economy and $400 billion in ecosystem services from these same forests. Isn't your analysis one-sided?
Not intentionally. Coexistence is possible. Well-managed timber operations can share landscapes with recreation. The goal is regulation that adapts rather than stagnates.
The prosecution calls Dr. Edwin Fortunell, fire ecology and recreation expert. Dr. Fortunell, please summarize the ecological and economic implications of the rescission.
Decades of data show that most large wildfires start near existing roads, not in untouched forests. Roads introduce ignition sources like vehicles, power lines, campers, and their construction accelerates erosion and sedimentation, especially in steep terrain. USGS found sediment levels increased by 300% after road building, small neutralized flooding beds, and degrading downstream water quality. Economically, outdoor recreation contributes about $450 billion and supports 4.5 million jobs, more than mining, logging, and oil combined.
Cross-examination.
Isn't Idaho already under its own 2008 roadless rule? How does the 2025 rescission materially change management here?
Yes, Idaho's framework remains, but federal policy shifts coordination and funding across most of state fire management zones. The rescission helps align federal and state responses instead of locking them into older national restrictions.
Could the real issue be poor road maintenance, not the existence of roads?
Maintenance helps, but fragmentation is the bigger problem. Each new road divides ecosystems, disrupts migration routes, and invites invasive species.
Roads also provide critical access for firefighters and evacuation. Isn't that a benefit?
Absolutely, strategic roads, on the other hand, will ensure stability. But there's a difference between target fire roads and extensive logging networks. Science supports purpose-limited roads for safety, not permanent industrial grids.
You mentioned recreation's $450 billion impact, but that includes private resorts and parks. Isn't that overstating the connection to roadless areas?
Not really. Public demand for wilderness, clean water, and inland landscapes drives the recreation economy. When those assets degrade, tourism declines, as seen in parts of Montana and Alaska after forest impacts.
Isn't some development better than none?
Short-term extraction rarely creates long-lasting prosperity. Boom and bust mining towns show that once resources are gone, population shrinks, tide bases collapse, and the land remains damaged. Sustainable tourism and conservation jobs, on the other hand, build generational stability.
As storms of opinion swell, one truth remains. Every path, because its destination, has a value to someone or something. You've each given this issue life, data, passion, and purpose. But no verdict will be passed today. Just a question left echoing among the trees. Are we protecting the land or locking it away? Now we'll hear closing arguments.
Your Honor, this case isn't about rejecting management, it's about responsible management. The roadless rule never prevented action. It required justification grounded in science. The defense speaks of flexibility, yet flexibility without accountability invites exploitation. Councilwoman Covey reminded us that federal obligations to tribes are legal mandates, not favors. Dr. Fortunell showed that conservation economies outperform extraction over the long term.
Your Honor, the intent behind the rescission is not destruction, it is renewal. Forest conditions have changed and so must our approach. Dr. Thompson showed that systemic paralysis threatens wildlife corridors and surrounding communities. Ms. Munden showed how rural economies rely on predictable access and opportunity. Even Dr. Fortunell acknowledged the value of strategic roads for safety. The USDA acted within its lawful authority to modernize management. We ask the court to uphold this decision in the spirit of balance, resilience, and progress.
This court has heard compelling testimonies on both sides, but what emerges is not a simple conflict of right or wrong, but of values and visions. The challenge of managing America's public lands lies in not choosing between economy and ecology, but in recognizing their connection. Whatever the verdict, let it remind us that stewardship requires vigilance, humility, and cooperation. To borrow the words from Chief Seattle, we do not inherit these lands from our ancestors, we borrow them from our children. Court adjourned. We now stand for questions. Any questions? Feel free.
Great job.
Thank you.
So, the great job, first off, but this is the defense, and this is the prosecution.
The prosecution. This is the
Prosecution
defense.
and defense. So, defense. How quick is the response time for fires and for damaged roads and things like that concerning that on the federal side if this was to be repealed?
I couldn't tell you the exact time for responses to wildfires, but I know that it would be much quicker and the fires would be put out more fast. Because I know the prosecution talks about how roads ignite more fires, but while they may ignite more fires, that comes with poor education for things like recreational areas. But having more roads in the areas means that we are able to prevent the fires, but also put them out faster with faster firefighter response to the fires. And the amount of acres burned by these fires would go down substantially since with the rescission.
To this side, we had mentioned the Nez Perce tribe. Is there any collaboration with the Native American tribes in response to wildfire mitigation?
I don't know like an exact like order, but I would think so, as there's an executive order 13175 where governments and the Nez Perce tribe governments they communicate through issues that concern their lands. So I bet that's in the discussion somewhere.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'll take this one to the defense. What do you, how do you reflect on concerns that going through with this rescission might create kind of a snowball effect down the road, where once these lands are open to extraction and to other kinds of forestry harvesting, I'm concerned that we wouldn't be able to close that gate or mitigate, excuse the pun, or mitigate the results of that. So once the door is open, then it's wide open and there's no shutting it, there's no going back to protecting those lands in any way.
I know that specifically in Idaho, we would still have the 2008 roadless rule that Idaho put in effect. There's just a little bit of different standards between the national 2001 roadless rule. So there's different rules which are more, they go better with Idaho's ecosystem. So it wouldn't create a full snowball effect because we'd still have different rules in order specifically in Idaho.
Thank you.
I have another question. Oh, sorry. So the 2001 rule, 2008 rule, we do away with the 2001 rule, we still have the 2008 rule. But if we keep the 2008 rule and disapprove or rescind the 2001 rule, does that eliminate federal responsibility, federal assistance, and federal funding to the state of Idaho if we do repeal the 2001 rule?
Some of these are kind of stumpers for sure.
You repeat the question?
Okay. It was kind of a tongue twister, so I'll try. So we have the 2008 rule, 2001 rule. There's some overlap in those rules. However, though, if we do away with the 2001 rule and we're only left with 2008, does that take away federal responsibility to assist in wildfires and conservation and all those things? Or does it just leave Idaho on its own to fund those projects and to do all the work?
I know that the 2008 rule has its own part in Idaho, and it's much different than the 2001 rule, which if the 2001 rule would be rescinded, the 2008 rule would still be there and would still receive federal attention of some sort, and would also receive the state attention, which would also keep the lands protected and keep the habitats protected of many animals. I wouldn't just open the gate and it would just be much positive for the state.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So my question, I'm not sure who wants to answer this, but so the Frank Church Wilderness Area in Idaho, outside of Alaska, is the United States' second largest pristine wilderness area. There's only a few dirt roads. How would opening it up to development, this is a biased term, but destroy the landscape for tourism and hiking, camping, etc.?
Well, I know that recreation brings in a lot of harmful things for the ecosystem. For example, even our shoes bring in seeds from invasive species, which then go in and ruin soils that our native plants need. And it will ruin the ecosystem, also bringing in more fires and bringing in a lot more harmful things that will harm the ecosystem. And once we harm the ecosystem, it's very hard or nearly impossible to bring it back to what it was originally.
Another question. How long did it take you guys to prepare this presentation?
So we started a little close.
Yeah.
So we started thinking about ag issues last July, and we really locked down on this issue like November, December or area. So we were thinking about ag issues in July, and then we originally had a different issue, but we decided to. We didn't really. That issue didn't really fit for us, and so we thought like, oh, the roadless rule, and so we started really to lock down in November, December, around that area, and so now we're just really into it now.
So follow up on that question is, for the defense and the prosecution, are these your honest opinions and feelings, or is this just scripted? Like, I really stand behind this, or I really kind of am on the fence?
I know that I really stand for my side. At first, I wasn't really sure on what the 2001 and 2008 roadless rule was, but now that I've researched more about it, I can say I still stand on this side, just because I feel we should protect our ecosystems, we should protect our tribes and their culture, because it's been here for thousands of years and it's such a special thing that once we harm, we can't bring back.
I think personally going into it, I was more on the prosecution side once we first started. I just kind of picked a defense because there wasn't enough people yet. But going in and researching my part to find information for it, it's kind of changed my opinion on it, because now I understand like what both of the sides' reasonings are. So I'm kind of in the middle still, but I'm leaning towards my side after researching.
For me, I just picked the one that sounded more interesting to research and just talk about.
I stand with this side, and I am not a part of the Nez Perce tribe, but I'm glad that I got to research about it and look at this issue on a more emotional aspect. And so I still stand with the prosecution side.
And for me, I'm the judge, so I'm technically in the middle. But if you weren't asking me about my role and asking about my personal opinion, I'd be toward the prosecution side, because I enjoy the ecosystems that we have around us during the months of September to December, because I hunt and fish out there, and I just ride around with my family and my dogs, and I just enjoy that ecosystem so much that I would care if we weren't helpful to that ecosystem and that were to go away. So that's my personal opinion.
For me personally, it was kind of like Noelle. I was leaning towards this side when we first started, just because I didn't fully know like what the benefits were of rescinding the roadless rule. And through research and through learning about my part and just going through our script and just really seeing what the benefits could be from rescinding the roadless rule, I do say that I am on this side now.
I'm just here.
Well, we want to thank you for coming. This was way beyond just memorizing a script. It was very obvious that you researched the topic and spent a lot of time. Very impressive. There were the questions you had to think on your feet quickly, and you did a nice job. So I want to thank you for just a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So, Mayor Douglas, thank you again so much for having us. For the audience, these are 6 sophomores and 1 freshman.
Wow.
So they worked really hard.
Makes me feel good about our future, most definitely.
Absolutely. Great
Yeah.
job, you guys.
Thank you so much. All right, we will move on to agenda item number 3. It's Pocatello Regional Airport Commission update. Looks like we'll be going over the commission and the successes, as well as get the council's policies and expectations. So Looks like we have Alan and Molly here. Welcome.
Very good. I'll start out, if you will. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us this morning. My name is Alan Evans. I serve as the airport manager at the Pocatello Regional Airport, and with me today is Molly Baceris, and she is our Airport Commission Chair. And I'll let Molly go ahead and start us out, and then I'll share a few things with you towards the end.
All right, well, thank you, and thank you for having me here today. It's nice to see new faces on this council, and thank you for having us. As I look at the last year with the commission, we have readdressed what our duties are and what we were originally created for, to work on this commission and represent our community. So as we've done that, we've kind of switched up a few things that we are doing and really dug into some different goals and perspectives. So I'll share with you a few of the projects that we're working on. As identifying our responsibilities of the commission, including providing feedback and recommendation to council regarding the airport master plans, zoning and development guidelines, rental rates, and high-level review of special projects and programs. That's a lot. Our main focus recently has been establishing a rental rate structure for the non-aviation property, so the side that doesn't have the runway right on it, right? We are working at setting these rates that are equitable and competitive. The airport recently received an appraisal of our non-aviation property side, and along with Alan, the airport employees, city administration, and the commission, we have been using these appraisals to determine and compare the information to set those rental rates moving forward. That's a big undertaking. I've been on this for 6 years, I want to say, and I think we've been working on that this whole time. But I feel like we're finally getting that taken care of. Next up, I believe in the next few months, we're having the planning department come and talk to us about updating the airport non-aviation master plan and the zoning and development guidelines there. The commission will provide feedback and plan and guidelines throughout that process, and that again is mostly for the non-aviation side. We've recently begun work with the administration and Alan on reviewing and updating the city code for the airport. I will say that recently appointed and new commission individuals are really providing us great feedback on that, as we actually have two pilots that we have two pilots that sit on our commission now, and they provide great feedback for that, updating that code. Once we have our review complete, we'll have that reviewed by legal, and then that'll be submitted to you guys for approval. The commission also assists with air service development, and that's usually done by being a voice in the community and supporting the airport with updates like our new flights in May, and talking about it with a smile and being so excited that that is coming. Let's see, what else did I forget? Feedback on this, the air carrier incentive program that is being developed. Once that's complete, that'll also come to you guys for approval. The commission works to support the airport and is a valuable asset to the community, providing over $184 million of annual economic impact and creates over 1,000 jobs for our community. It's very necessary for the growth and development of our region, and we are super happy to serve. I will say, as I work with people all over the state, a lot of people know Alan. We are so lucky to have him and to have his expertise, and to have him actually stay here and be in our community is a huge asset. We enjoy working with him, and the knowledge that he brings is phenomenal. So with that, what questions can I ask? Yes, sir.
So first off, thank you both for the tremendous work that you do in the oversight of the airport. And Christy back there too, thank you too for, because I know that Alan's good, but without Christy,
You got that.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, no. But thank you guys. So concerning the non-aviation land where we're looking at leases and agreements and planning, I know that we have the CREST project that has been presented and talked about multiple times. What was the hand or the collaborative effort that was made with the Airport Commission? What role did you guys play in trying to develop this project?
So to be absolutely honest, we played no role in that. We were as surprised as the rest of the citizens in the community when that public announcement was made. And many of us, there's a lot of great members on this commission that are very well known throughout the community. A lot of us received phone calls asking us about the project, and we had nothing to provide. So at our next airport meeting, we then asked Alan if he could invite me and Kate to come and tell us what was going on and inform us of that. So about a month and a half, 2 months after the project was announced was when we finally got some type of update. I will say that Alan provided us a high-level overview of what he had been apprised of, but we truly, that seemed very high level as well. But thank you for asking that.
Thank you.
On the air carrier incentive program, are there still monies left for that? I know in the past we've had incentives to kind of like help guarantee flights. I was thinking that was no more, that was gone now.
So this is a new program that we're developing so that as we go out to meet with airlines and discuss having them come to our community, what incentives we can provide with them. So there isn't a dedicated amount of money in this. It's not established. That's what we're working on, is what do we want that to look like? It's a fairly, it's a new thing for us. It's something that the FAA has asked airports to put together. And so we have reached out to a couple of other airports that have just recently put theirs together. Got a pretty good template of what theirs looks like. I think ours will look very similar. Twin Falls was one of them. And so we will work with the commission on moving forward on making sure that the things that we say we can do and will do are applicable as we reach out to these airlines. But right now, there is not an air incentive program in place. So.
And I know we had a conference call yesterday. That was positive. We're working on some things.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that, because I think that's something obviously we will share with our commission as we move forward. That development, if that's the direction we decide to go.
Okay.
On the topic of incentives, can you give like a quick outline, maybe what I'm assuming incentives are financial, but are there any other incentives that we might not otherwise assume are available?
We haven't had to give incentives. We've given some revenue guarantees to keep service in the past. A lot of time the incentives, if you bring a new airline in, there could be money involved. A lot of times it's waiving of fees, landing fees, gate space, those sorts of things that cut their costs so that they don't have that initially to get established. Okay. We really have not had to do that in the past, but that's part of what I think we need to have in this plan is what can we do, what will we do, so that we're competitive and we can show the airlines what we've got.
Okay. Go ahead, Corey.
Sure. Did you have something?
When we're talking about this land use plan and coming up with competitive rates, what's the timeliness of like these, what is the word I'm looking for? The valuations on the land. What's the timeliness? When was the last time that these audits were done to determine?
I'm just going to let you talk that.
That's fine. We have determined that we need to do an appraisal on our land about every 5 years. We got caught a few years back with land prices really skyrocketing, and they still are obviously going up. We knew that our rates were low, But we weren't filled up. We didn't have people knocking down our door coming in. We still didn't have a lot of tenants that were taking that land at the lower rate. We are required, because of our grant assurances that we take from the FAA, to make sure that we are charging fair market value. And I think many of you have heard me talk about that. What is fair market value? It's a difficult number to figure out because there's so many variables. So our appraisals have taken property that's similar to what we have, all the way from Idaho Falls to Boise, freeway access, those sorts of things. And that's kind of what they've included in their appraisal. The first one we got was done a little bit different. It was kind of broke out as big parcels if somebody were to come in and take larger chunks of land. And of course, that rate when it came back was pretty high. And so if you rattled that off to a potential tenant, they'd say, we can't do that. That's way too high. So we've whittled that back down. We've gotten this other appraisal and expressed our concerns with those high numbers. Land values are still high. We can't sell them the land, obviously. It's all leases. And so we need to get a percentage of what that sale would be. And that's really what we're trying to develop. And I think with the commission's help, we've done very, very well moving forward. We've still got a few things we need to work out, but I think we're headed in the right direction. And we've got good people that want to see that.
Yeah, I do want to point out that we did look at that first appraisal and we tried to offer it at that high amount. That didn't work out very well, but we did try to go through and look at that advisement that was provided to us from that appraisal. And we decided, wait, maybe we need to step this back a little bit. And once we did that, we actually had a few interested parties come to the table.
I think it's important to note how much of an asset and how valuable the airport is to our community. And I mean, even to the point of being like the backup runway or landing field for Salt Lake City. People don't realize how important we actually are, and to fire service and the military we're the second largest runway in the area, in the region. So there's a lot of value here. And so what you guys are doing, I think, is very important and very vital to part of the stability of not only the airport, but to our region. So thank you guys for your work.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does the airport have any say in the property that the city owns that's sort of removed from the core airport facility, such as all the amount of acreage that we have out there? Do they have a say in that, what we do with that property?
So the airport sits on 3,200 acres that is owned by the airport.
Okay.
And that is all city-owned, airport-owned property.
Right. But does the FAA have a say in all 3,200 acres?
They do, to a certain degree. Obviously, they want heavier scrutiny over the airfield side of it, the operations side of it. But they still require us to get fair market value and to make sure that the uses that we're putting in the other side of the fence, the unsecured side, don't create any problems, I guess, for aviation. So the building height, the emissions, whatever may be going in there, they do have a little say in that as well.
Right, okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Ellen, I have a question about, so on the aviation side with our hangars, what is our capacity? How many of those are full and rented at the moment?
So that's a really good question, and the city owns, as the city, 9 hangars, and those are full, and they have a waiting list. I think that list is probably 8 or 9 people deep consistently. There's not a lot of movement in that. So what has happened recently, and I don't know if you recall, but we didn't build a hangar on this airport for about 18 years. And here a few years back, things started to turn, and we started to get a lot more inquiry. And I would guess we have probably put up 10 hangars, private hangars, since that time. Right now, we have 4 that were built this last year, and a couple of them are for sale. So a gentleman is building a couple of them on spec to sell, which has been nice. And then, as you may know, we just developed we took out the speedway, the circle track speedway area. That was the best place to build hangars for access to our airfield. And so we have paved that area. We are not completely done with it. We still need to put infrastructure in, sewer and water and gas, which will happen, we're hoping, this summer. And then there should be about, depending on what size hangars are built there, I'm gonna say 35 to 38 hangars in that very first section that we've developed. So hangars, there's getting to be a large demand across the state for hangars, and we're seeing that as well.
I think it's important to know how expensive they are too. Like.
Depends
for
on
the
what they
city,
want in them.
Right?
What kind of a man cave you're looking for.
Yeah. On the non-aviation side,
Yes.
how many buildings do we have, if any, that are vacant? Or is everything full?
Everything is full. The city doesn't own many. We have some warehouses, and those are all full at this time. So we don't have anything on the non-aviation side that I can think of that is not full. The Peterson building that we talked about is going to have a tenant there shortly. So really, other than that, we are quite filled up.
Okay.
Ready to build some more if people would like to.
Sure. Yeah, and Molly, you went through, some of the commission, the major, kind of steps there, like the non-aviation master plan, city code, lease agreements, et cetera. Is there any confusion on your committee commission that, I know earlier I had heard that the commission wanted a little bit of extra direction with that. Are you still in need of that and expectations from mayor and council?
Well, I appreciate that question, Mayor. I think we're working and moving forward on that. I think what set us back a little bit is in the original designation of this commission, it identified economic development. And currently you have 2 economic development individuals sitting on that board. And so some of that CREST project, when that came out, really kind of took a lot of us back. We're like, well, we didn't know anything about this, but yet the commission has been appointed to help with that and be that liaison. And to not be part of that, I think, just then we went back and asked, what are we supposed to do? When I first started on this commission several years ago, a lot of the things that we were doing was just approving lease amounts. And in talking to Alan and Christy, we said, gosh, we really want to do more. We want to add more value. You know what these really ultimately should be, and you could take those to council. Why we're just having meetings kind of to approve lease amounts. It kind of seemed like we weren't fulfilling maybe what we were originally supposed to do according to that ordinance. So
Okay.
to answer your question, we're getting there. But if there is ever anything, now that we have Councilman Magnum on our board or as our liaison, I think it's important to let him know and to communicate with us if we're going too deep into something and that's not our forte and not what we should be doing for you, or if you want more from us. Like I said, you have a great commission right now, and there are some folks that are on that commission that are grassroots, grew up here, and really invested and want to see that airport survive. And we have great relations with the airport management. So anything that we can do better, that's what we need to know.
Yeah, and I was happy to hear your next meeting. Portland Valley Development will be there. Mia, Kate, maybe you can talk through some of that and, just kind of communicate on what's going on with each other. But on the committee commission, where you've been on there for the commission for 6 years, and Alan's been there forever on it. But, on committee,
Still look good.
I'm not telling you you're old. I'm just saying you have a lot of service there. But if you can, I think it works well with committees to come with, let us know the changes that you want. And you're just so more into the inner workings than maybe we are or I am. And so I think that's a good path forward. If there's like a draft of something or questions, like make the proposal to us, and then the ultimate say is the council and the mayor there. But I would just ask for your help on, getting us a draft or any modifications there, and then we talk. I just feel like you're in a better position than maybe myself to recommend what is most efficient for the the commission or the committee, and then we just go from there.
I appreciate that suggestion. I think that's great.
I would say as the airport manager, I feel like we're making progress. I think we're moving in the right direction. We're going through some stuff that we haven't visited for a long, long time, and those things need to be addressed, and so we're working on those, and I think we're finding things that need to be done. So it's moving in the right direction, in my opinion.
Mr. Mayor, just quickly.
Sure.
So with that, Alan, there's a master plan for the aviation side, for the airport, and then we're talking about a master plan for the non-aviation side.
That's correct.
On the non-aviation side, is there a current master plan, and how old is that?
We do have a current master plan, but it is very, very aged. I think it's back to 12, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that. Yeah.
And on the airport side, how old
That
is
one
that?
is more recent. That one we did just a couple of years ago now. The FAA will actually pay for the aviation side, and so we have used aviation dollars, federal dollars to do that one. They won't pay for this other one, so we are working with planning. We're going to get this moving forward, and that's part of what they're coming out to meet with us about, and start looking at that, because we do need that updated.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Sure.
Molly, you mentioned that there are some city code updates that you're working on.
Yeah.
Could you give us a preview of a couple of those?
I can speak a little bit to that, very low level. You'll have to be the expert. But what we found in going through this, we're going on our third study session actually to review those airport codes. And what we're finding is the last time that was updated was the 80s?
Correct.
It's about time.
We,
98?
yeah, it's been a long time.
So it was a long time ago. And a lot of the stuff in there doesn't even
It
have
doesn't
the
apply.
terminology or apply to our airport. And then what we're finding is a lot of the guidelines that we have in there are regulated by, who's that authority that the
FAA.
FAA.
pilots,
FAA.
Well, through the FAA.
but that other thing, another initial, another acronym. Anyways, it's mandated by the pilots to act a certain way.
FAA standards
FAA
require pilots to
standards.
do certain things, I think is what she's trying to get
Correct,
to.
I'm trying to get to
And
that.
we had things spelled out that
We didn't need it
we
there.
can't control. It's really under the FAA's direction.
Yeah, so if that's an example.
Yeah, so it's a lot of cleanup of aged code and really modernizing.
Yes.
And aligning with other mandates from other agencies.
And terminology that just quite frankly didn't need to be in there.
One that strikes me that might be interesting, and I just talked with Dean in the fire department, they're looking at that. We've got a list of fire department things that were written in that, and they are so aged that they don't really apply. And so we need to clean that up and just go with the most recent requirements that we use. It'll be easy, but that'll put us back on track.
There was also some on there you'd like to know, Mayor, that gave you permission to tell people what they could fly or drop out of their airplanes as they flew over the city of Pocatello. So that was an example of,
Yeah.
that is a prime
Love it.
example.
We may be taking that away.
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
might have to like reconsider that because FAA won't give you that permission to tell pilots what they
Yeah,
can put in
sure.
people.
We are leaving that
Dropouts.
Santa Claus can fly. I think that's
I
still
think
in
we
there.
talked about that. Christmas Eve and Christmas, we will allow Santa Claus in his sleigh, but
I think I've seen those ping pong ball drops that are pretty cool, so hey, you never know. Might get permission
Apparently.
for that.
you were in charge of what could be dropped in
Yeah,
neighborhoods.
You
yeah.
didn't know.
It's still in code
Good to know.
currently.
I won't let it go to my head.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So in our conversation, how much of that code will come before city council? Because there's a portion of it that doesn't need to come to us. Is that correct? Maybe that's a legal question. Or does it depend?
It all goes to
I think it
It
all
all
goes
goes
to
to
you. I think
Okay.
once we go through it and legal
That was
reviews
my
it,
understanding.
Okay.
it will come to you to make sure that it meets your
Oh, okay.
desires.
We'll submit it to legal.
Yes.
Legal will review it, and then it will go to you.
Okay, perfect.
We've still got a few sections that we haven't gone through, so it'll be a little while before you see
It is
that.
the funnest thing in the world to sit and read code that's 30 years old.
Yeah, and just so that you know, our plan for that we talked about was actually our next review will be our last review of it. And then we will actually open it up in one of our commission meetings to get feedback from the hangars and the airport
Tenants. And users.
so that they can provide feedback as well, because that should be important to mitigate maybe your review of it not having a room full.
Mayor, I got one more.
Yes.
Alan, can you talk about the new tower that's being built?
Yes, I'd love to. So that, we've talked about that for a little while. We knew that we were getting a new tower. It's going to be built by the FAA, totally on their dollars. We don't have anything invested in that. They actually are, that process started long ago, but there's a lot of behind the scenes work. They are looking at breaking ground. It looks like probably June of 2026, so we'll see that here shortly. There's been a lot of coordination going on with some of the things that they need, moving some water lines and a few things, but you're gonna see some activity on that. That's probably going to take a couple of years for them to stand that up. And I do have a picture of what that building's gonna look like in my binder. If anybody's interested, I'd be happy to show you. It's gonna be a very attractive looking tower. As far as towers go, it's not just a square box with a deal on top. So we're really happy about that. It's going to probably take them, after they build it, from what I understand, a year to get it retrofitted with equipment and operational. So this may not come online till 29 or 30 fully. And then after that, they'll make that cut over, and the existing tower that they're operating out of now, they will take down, so that we're not left with that. That's something we have to deal with. So we're excited about it. It's we're the very first of this new design tower to be built. So I'm sure there's going to be some hiccups with their process, the things that they've got to do, but it's supposed to be a process that builds a tower within, I think, 3 to 4 years versus the historic 9 years that it takes to build a tower the way it has been.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So for the time that I've been on the council, I've been a huge proponent of the airport, and I would implore council that if you get an opportunity to go out and meet with the airport director and just do a tour of the airport. He has some old maps that he can show you of the airport from, I'm not saying you're old, but from his long time, as the mayor put it, out at the airport. And so, again, thank you guys for what you do.
Yeah, please come out. I'd love to show you what we have if you're not familiar with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We will next move on to agenda item number 4, city entryway and roadway landscape redesign proposal from Planning and Development Services. Planning and Development Services staff members and representatives of consultant, the Land Group, will be in attendance to present proposed concepts for the new landscape designs for selected city entryways and roadways. Council may wish to select preferred concepts to implement as opportunity allows. This project was made possible through a Western States Fire Managers Grant administered by the Idaho Department of Lands. Welcome, Jim and Maggie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Jim Anglesey, Long Range Planner for the city, and we have with us Maggie Clark from the Land Group. I'll turn the time over to Maggie, but staff is here to answer any questions that we can help assist you with. Maggie.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, Mayor and members of the council. We're really excited about this project. We've been working on it since last summer, and I just kind of wanted to first introduce the team that I have behind me that are not able to be here today because of their location. So the principal in charge from the Land Group is Doug Russell. He's been just kind of oversight on this project and making sure that we're not doing anything crazy. And then James Leo, he's been handling the irrigation side of things. He's also a landscape architect, as am I. And then we also have on our team a Firewise consultant, Jerry McAdams from Boise also, who does a lot of work on fire mitigation plans and things like that. And then we have Erica Stewart, who is a graduate student from ISU that's been working with ITD on revegetation projects in this area and south of here also. So first of all, just starting into the kind of goals of this project, we wanted to support the public health, safety, and welfare by reducing the risk of wildfires. We already heard from the FFA students this morning about wildfires, so it kind of is a good subject change here. And we want to protect the city resources, protect the land, water, and responsible use of the city taxpayers' money to increase the ecological value of the project in these areas for, including water conservation, species diversity, and native planting and pollinator habitat. We also wanted to produce a implementation and maintenance plan for these sites that will prioritize efficiency and long-term success, because we all know that you can have the best project, but if it's not maintained properly and if it's that part of the piece is not considered at the beginning, it can be pretty unsuccessful. So these are all the things that we're considering as we move through this process. And there's just to kind of get you a little bit more familiar with Firewise and what parts of that concept we're using in these sites. We're reducing the fire fuel loading in these areas that are near trees, but we do also want to keep the trees because they do provide the ecological benefit. But we are trying to keep the shrubs and the larger fire fuels away from those those urban forest areas, as well as provide something that's interesting to look at. That's maybe going to be a diversion from the typical turf grass that you now see, and it's going to be a shift for sure. But understanding kind of what's behind that can hopefully help the community embrace that change. So I guess we can start the slideshow. So part of this process was we went through the public comment period of 2 weeks, the end of January. And we got about 60 responses on the most answered questions. And they were there was some themes that ran through the responses, including the excitement about native plants. They really wanted some more trees everywhere, love trees. They were excited about the drought tolerant, the addition of pollinators, the addition of habitat for ground dwelling insects and things of that nature. The drainage pond redesign, there was a lot of interest around seeing something done in that area, as well as the reducing the maintenance cost and having a purposeful design that would provide interesting color and flowers, hopefully not wildfires, and the addition of perennials and just some more interest in this areas. So these are just some of the plants that we have been looking at, including in the mixes, and we'll kind of go through the areas where these plants will be implemented, but just kind of get you familiar with the types of plants we're talking about. These are using drought-tolerant native plants in these are just the grass selections that we've found, in addition to the more ornamental types that would be used in the kind of like the focal areas throughout the design. These are the perennial lists. Once again, these are perennials that are native to not necessarily Idaho, but in the area, or ones that just do really well that are drought tolerant. So everything that we're using is the low water, more Firewise type of plant material. These are the shrubs. Same situation, same criteria in the selection of these plants as well. So starting at concept 1, which is the most northern site of the 6 sites that were involved in this project. And this is the first concept of the roundabout. And what you're not seeing is that Northgate Parkway that kind of snakes up above this picture that you're seeing. And so that was not presented to the public for review, but that we can get you that if you would like to see that. But this is just focusing on the roundabout itself at this time. So this concept includes a dry stream bed going through the center. It includes a sculptural or art piece in the center of it, and then more just rock mulch and kind of more sparse plantings that would include native grasses, native drought tolerant shrubs, and it would just be more of an arid look. The second concept is the one that was preferred by the public by 34 to 19. And this one utilizes a lot more color. This is kind of using these swaths of perennials and shrubs around, kind of in this circular pattern around the roundabout, and then using shrubs in the center surrounding the art sculptural area. And this one, there was there's positive feedback on the consideration of the native plants. That's a similar through everything that comment has come up. And there was a little bit of concern on the perennials dying back, and then, you know, we wouldn't have that much interest perhaps, but that's sort of the name of the game when you live in Idaho and you have, well, sometimes you have winter, not this year, but, and so, you know, that's just kind of a balance that we have to work with. And so the shrubs in the center would provide that interest, and the, you know, the art sculpture piece would provide that, as well as the boulder design. And then it would really be very interesting in the spring and summer months, and fall also, as it kind of transitioned into with those fall colors. So we kind of broke down the, Jim, would you mind sticking the,
Mr. Mayor?
kind of see a little bit, thank you.
Sure. Yes, the Councilman Nichols has a question.
Actually, I
sorry.
have a question
Yes.
for you. So as we have questions, would you prefer that we save them up for the end, or as we go along here in real time, or?
I'm fine with them just shooting them out.
Okay.
Do you have a question right now?
I'll save the one I have for later.
All right, thank you. Okay, so there was some comment about a less formal design. The person that wrote that preferred the previous one. The noticing between the difference between Chubbuck and Pocatello sides, and that had come up in the discussions early on in the process, and it was decided that we would attempt, you know, just kind of a complete departure, if you will, from the Chubbuck design, just because this is Pocatello and we're not necessarily trying to do what they have done. Not saying anything about that design or anything like that, but that's just kind of the discussion that was had. So just to address that one. And then there was also a request to consider lighting on the paths that run in this area. And then for the comments that affected the maintenance or cost, there was the concern about the maintenance and the bulb, introducing the bulbs. And it's probably a little difficult to see, but within those kind of swaths, there's kind of 3 circular or arched bulb bands. And so that's what they're referring to there. But that discussion has been had with the city, and they're okay with the maintenance on that, and they're excited about the benefits that would provide aesthetically. And then another comment that came up several times was encouraging ground nesting insects and not having the landscape rock. And we have not included it in very many areas because of various conversations that we've had with parks and the maintenance issues, and also the availability that the city has to shred trees that are being removed and use that shredded mulch in the improvement areas. And then more trees.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
So generally speaking, on this type of landscaping, is it more or less expensive to maintain than traditional landscaping, particularly like just Kentucky bluegrass?
Sure. Yes, it is. That is more expensive. The Kentucky bluegrass is more expensive when you consider the weekly mowing, and these type of designs that have, you know, perennials and shrubs, they require, depending on I guess how much rebloom you would like, you could go out and deadhead things, you know, a couple times a summer or something to encourage that rebloom on the perennials. But typically you're not going to be fussing with these things every week. It's going to be, you know, a seasonal thing. You're going to be pruning anything that might have gotten, you know, in a spot that you don't want anymore or something. But we've carefully selected plants and positioned them in a way that they are not going to get too big for their space that they have, thus reducing the maintenance also. And so things like ornamental grasses, those can be chopped down, you know, in the winter or left in the winter and cut in the spring, depending on the your preferred method. And so you're not having this ongoing constant mowing. And it's also in a lot of, and you'll see this a little bit more as we progress, but a lot of the areas that we're talking about, the mowing is in areas that are pretty highly trafficked, and getting a hand mower, you know, across lanes of traffic into an island that has, you know, turf grass in it, there's significant safety risk involved with that. And so, you know, there's a lot of great benefits to switching from the traditional grass lawns that you're seeing in these areas to the more environmentally drought tolerant responsible way of landscaping.
So does this type of landscaping require much expertise on the behalf of the people that are maintaining it? I know it's probably pretty easy to teach somebody how to mow grass, but what about to deal with the specialized type of plantings?
It's a great question. Yes, that has come up, and it is unquestionably harder to maintain these type of landscapes. However, once the material selection that we've gone through is not. It's not like every site has 20 different plants that the other sites don't have. We're continuing with the same similar plant palette that will allow the maintenance people to, once they kind of understand these plants, it's going to be, there's not going to be a lot of new learning done after that point. And these are also native plants or, low water that typically require less maintenance than more of the, plants that might not be native to this area and are, grow too much and grow too fast and are getting out of control because they are invasive or something like that. So, but that's a great question, and that's just something that it's kind of a trade-off for when you're dealing with a more complex ecological system than just the monoculture of a lawn.
Great, thank you.
Councilman Mangum had a question.
Yes, Councilman Mangum.
So you had mentioned I believe it was the Parks and Rec Department. That's who would be doing the maintenance on this? Yes. Okay.
And they have been involved in this whole process through,
Okay.
And so at some point, will we be hearing from Ann and maybe Tom?
I was just thinking that would be good to get, get your perspectives, and I think that's great.
Mayor.
Yes.
Yes, Councilman.
Okay, so irrigation wise, so I don't know, Nichols and Mangum might remember 13 months ago when I was advocating for more of this stuff at our goal setting session. But like in these roundabouts and just looking through the rest of the presentation, does there have to be special irrigation for these more drought tolerant plants?
Well, because of the funding vehicle used for this project, irrigation modifications are not included in the funding. So what we're doing to try to help make this, again, I guess, stretch the money further, is looking at the existing irrigation, seeing how we can shape the shape of the beds and shape of how we're changing plant material through these sites that you'll see. We're really looking at the irrigation and trying to take that into consideration, I guess. So when we do come to, and I guess another funding source for the irrigation modification, it will hopefully be minimized because of that. But in this project, there's no money for irrigation changes. And so well, for this one, it's not really a point of discussion because there's nothing there right now. And so it's, it's all going to be new and it won't be done with this funding. But for Pocatello Creek, I guess maybe we can just
Sure, we'll keep
switch.
going through the.
So this might be a little just better to discuss this while looking at this slide. So the current existing irrigation, it's in linear zones primarily, and the areas that we're suggesting to have more of a perennial area or just a higher concentration of color, basically, and interest. On the edges where the on-ramp and off-ramps, where they come down and meet Pocatello Creek, those areas have been designated as, focal areas that we could, at the time when there's funding available, whether it's an IF grant or some other type of funding, we could go through and do an additional drip system that would be Bluetooth powered or controlled, I guess. And so then at that point, we would remove heads, move them around, and Braden has been instrumental in these conversations on how we can best do that. But that's how we would address that in the future, because the irrigation is definitely an issue. And the way these more native landscapes work, in the establishment period, which would be 1 to 3 years, depending on how things go, you really do need an additional supplemental irrigation just to get things going, and so you don't have a bunch of weed encroachment, and just for successful establishment. And then at that point, the intent is it can really be choked back. And then you would just kind of, the Parks Department would work with, monitor how the plants were doing and, give them, and it would be a lot more of, more the native environment that we'd be simulating at that time. But for the first part, it does require additional irrigation.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, sure.
So just at my house, for example, I've zero-scaped the front and back, mostly with a drip line system, and I know it takes manpower to, get it set up, but after it's set up, it's almost no maintenance. So is that kind of what we're going for here?
Yes, I mean, there was always some maintenance involved, of course.
Of course.
But yes, it's a lot. That's the goal, right? We're trying to not make things harder. We're trying to make everything easier with these systems in after the first couple years.
Well, I think the summer maintenance is really key because an area that's really gotten away from us is that east side of the center Clark Street interchange there. I mean, that's turned really wild. I think we just have to get out of the mindset that, well, plan it and forget it. That I think that's what happened up there. So we need a maintenance plan if we implement some of these things.
Definitely, and that will be included in the deliverables.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So is there actually money left in this grant that could be used for the physical improvements? And if so, how much money might be left?
So, in terms of money, we've got $128,000 for implementation. And
I'm sorry, say that again.
$128,000 for implementation, and that's specifically directed to Pocatello Creek. And then additionally, $17,400 is for Parks and Rec staff to do some of the work installation.
So we're bound to Pocatello Creek first. There's no
for
modification
implementation.
on that. Because I think that's already beautified pretty well, that I wish we had other options, but sometimes grants don't let you do that.
Yeah, and I don't think that money's gonna do the whole interchange. It'll be a
No,
very small
Lucky
amount.
if 1/4 will be done with that.
If we're lucky, one
Uh-huh.
quarter.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can you clarify that conversation? So you said we're bound to the Pocatello Creek interchange. Does that mean that it's a priority or what? Tell me what's crucial about Pocatello Creek.
That's meant to be the demonstration of this Firewise implementation.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Maggie, if you know. I think that was selected because of all the work that ITD has done in the area. And so I believe it was seen as advantageous to start there because of all the work that's been going on there.
So does the grant only cover or partially cover Pocatello Creek, or the plans that we're seeing here are also included in that grant? Or I'm just
Yep.
trying to understand how much funding are we lacking to finish all of these as presented? Or
Yeah,
what
so
are
the grant
choices?
covers all of these design documents.
Okay.
And the maintenance plan, and then implementation for Pocatello Creek, up to $128,000.
Okay, so the implementation of the other sites would be additional monies that we do not have in the grant?
Correct.
I got you.
So we'll have the designs ready for when funds are available.
Thank you.
All right, so we better keep moving on through the slides. We have a heavy agenda today.
So there's a lot in this project. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, this is the first concept that was presented in the public engagement. And then this one is the concept 2, which is the preferred. This design takes out all of the existing turf grass and plants various types of grasses, I guess, in certain areas. So the exterior perimeter band, that's the shorter native grasses, and then in the center, that is the longer grasses. And then you see those darker areas that have the kind of little circles in them. Those are the creeping red fescue, which is you'll see that used throughout the designs. It's a lower water use option that doesn't require a lot of mowing. It kind of has this kind of sort of rolling look to it, I guess. You'll see some pictures later and then that would, when we're talking about phasing and money involved, we are talking about doing that in these shrub areas and then planting the shrubs later at a different phase when the funding is allowed or available, excuse me. So that's all part of this and how we're thinking about phasing it and how we can not have, a partially done this and that. And so it looks fairly finished and then we just keep working on it. So the public isn't like, geez, that's a complete eyesore for 4 years or whatever. So that's the idea there. You'll see a couple of access paths running through the corners, one on the northeast and then one on the southwest corner quadrant. That is for maintenances. So again, the safety issue, so maintenance can get in there and the Parks Department doesn't have to worry about their employees being in unsafe areas. Is there anything else on this one you guys would like to discuss?
I have a question about, so these comments on the side of the slide, tall grasses and wildflowers will look messy. Did that come from public comment?
Yes.
Okay, because I hear that constantly, specifically about the Clark Street interchange. So how do you address that?
Well, it would be addressed by continuing education, and so the public can learn more about what the intent of these projects are, because it's definitely going to be a completely different look, and there are going to be people that are not going to be excited about it. But hopefully, through the continuing education, we can, continually say, like, this is why we're doing this. This is the benefits that will, affect you as the taxpayer, as the citizen. And also, these planting mixes will be designed to be more dense and fill in, so there's not a lot of weeds, but the weeding will have to, there's a weeding process that's going to happen in the first couple years. And so really it's an establishment of dense native plant material that will not look messy and weedy, hopefully. It will look like these pictures more of like a meadow look, and it will be, all nice and filled in and not, patchy and not look very intentional and purposeful.
Mr. Mayor? Okay, yes.
So from a Firewise perspective, talk to me about this new type of design versus Kentucky bluegrass. I mean, it wouldn't seem to me like Kentucky bluegrass is going to catch on fire all that easily, right? Or is that not the case? Is there a Firewise advantage to going from grass to this type of replanting?
Sure. No, you're right. The Kentucky bluegrass doesn't catch on fire that easily, but what's more concerning in a lot of these areas are there's junipers that exist currently, which are very flammable. And so we're trying to, graduate, and also we're limbing up the trees to help not, have those ladder effects with the wildfires. And essentially the effect of being more water-wise and more native, and that water conservation aspect comes into it too. And so as a whole, all these things rolled together is more beneficial to the environment than currently.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, this is the Clark Street Concept 1. Similar situation where there's the shorter native grasses on the outside, the longer on the taller, on the inside, with the shrub areas and the focal, more perennial shrub areas. And then this one is the second one that was preferred. This room, well, actually, let me back up. On this one, it says that the juniper planting, which is that most northern part of, it's a pretty big chunk there that you see is kind of hatched out. That we've had discussions with the city and ITD, and the intent is to remove that. This concept does not show that, but just to let you guys know, that is what's happening, or what's intended to happen, I guess. And so this concept shows a lot more shrubs on the top part of the slopes that are harder to maintain, harder to mow. So we're putting the shrubs in those areas, in addition to a few more trees. And then there's the focal perennial areas. The stormwater ponds, I think there does need to be a little bit more internal conversation with streets department who maintains those, and just kind of understand a little bit more about what we can do in those areas. This concept currently just shows grasses planted in there. What we don't want to do is make it really hard to maintain those areas either, and to accommodate for the dredging schedule that occurs, but also make them more aesthetically pleasing. They are, something that comes up a lot as something that needs to be addressed. So I think that's probably the biggest deal in this concept is the stormwater ponds that need to be addressed. So any other? Okay, concept 2 on the Oak Street. This is where Yellowstone and Oak come together. There's that free right that goes onto Yellowstone. And this concept just removes the current turf grass and replaces it with the creeping red fescue. You see a picture there of how that looks. And it can be mowed, well, as much as you want to, but just at least once a year just to kind of knock down the old. And so the new fresh can come in the spring. It does have, it's a completely different look. It's a finer blade grass, and it has a little bit more of a lighter green color to it. It's not the darker green Kentucky bluegrass, but that is kind of what that looks like. And it's a significant savings in water. We're talking like 30 to 50% reduction in water
But
usage.
there would still be irrigation needed,
There would,
just
yes.
less frequently.
Yes, exactly. And the tree, there's some additional trees here. And then we're maintaining all the trees that are healthy and, not in a place that are contrary to maintenance concerns or things like that. Okay, so this is the concept 1 that is preferred over the other. It includes some perennial beds along that free right and that corner where Oak and Yellowstone meet. And then the rest is the same with the red fescue there. This area does have a design plan for ITD, and so the final design in this area will include, anticipate that design change that is coming as projected in 2031, and make it so it's, integrates as seamlessly as possible with that new design, and hopefully not a whole bunch of disruption. Anything on this one?
Yeah, I think just if you can roll through the rest of the slides pretty quickly, and then any questions at the end.
Okay, we'll do. Okay, water-wise garden, essentially, this one's really simple. Just identifying areas that are overcrowded or the plants are unhealthy and replacing them with similar native plants that preserves the intent of the water-wise garden in the beginning. And everybody was excited about this one. Sorry about that text. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, this is one of the islands that you see on 4th and 5th. This is the first one. And this one includes removing the sod grass and replacing it with, there's an area of creeping veronica, which is a low growing ground cover. There's also some perennials and native ornamental grasses, some shrub massings around the trees, and then those bands of bulbs running through them as well. This is the same type of design. This is on 5th, and it's similar, same design components, just kind of elongated and adjusted to the size. There was really no negative comments on these. Well, actually, there was a couple comments just asking why we're taking the grass out. So that's to be expected. This is Center Street underpass area that's currently under construction, essentially using shrub massing underneath the existing trees and perennial focal areas at the front of the design. This is for several areas running along Yellowstone, 5th, and Pocatello Ave. These are the skinny areas that are between 5 and 8-ish feet along the railroad fence there, the chain link fence. And so the option was given, concept 1 would be Virginia creeper, which is an aggressive vine that would grow and screen the fence, and then creeping red fescue on the ground. And concept 2 was utilizing tall native ornamental grasses and Grollo sumac, which is a kind of a ground covering shrub in these areas. This is the last one on South 5th, the sign that was implemented a couple years ago. That is, preserved in this concept. We're just simply removing some hazardous trees that also kind of shade the sign and I believe add to the visibility issues of the sign. And not adding anything tall in front of the sign, but just keeping that the lower creeping red fescue in front and with some additional focal beds on the edges in order to kind of highlight the sign and you kind of lead your eye to it. And then keeping the 3 trees that are on north of the sign as currently
And
shown.
that sign being the big Pocatello sign,
Yes.
just for clarification.
Yes, the existing sign. We're not proposing any changes to the landscaping around the sign or the sign that has been maintained.
Okay. All right, and Ann, did you have any comments or anything to share on maintenance or Parks and Rec perspective?
Oh, sorry.
Ann Butler, Parks and Recreation Director. This is Braden Millward. He's our Parks Superintendent. We've been involved in this process with Maggie for quite a while now. This is a difficult project for us in general. An entry wage employee for the Parks Department starts at $10.19 an hour. It is a revolving door of teenagers, right? Which makes knowledge base for plants difficult. The easiest thing for us to maintain is in disagreement with Maggie is to mow and irrigate Kentucky bluegrass. I would love to see some of these narrower areas xeriscaped in a new way, but large areas, grass is the best approach for us. Now, Pocatello Creek, we do have a little bit of money we've committed to spend there. Maybe there's a way to put an entrance and find some middle ground and have a beautiful garden there. I don't know. We do get a lot of complaints about East Clark. That is fully maintained, it is fully mature, and that's what it's supposed to look like. It is completely mature. Everybody I've talked to, that is exactly what it is intended for. But I have a hard time sending staff up there. They don't know what the plant is. They don't know if it's a weed. They don't know how to cut it. If we mow it too narrow, too tight, we kill it. So we do have some issues there with education. And I don't know the answer to that. So we are trying to find a balance. We love the island approach out here and things like that where we can get rid of grass where there's high speeds and where we wouldn't have as many staff. We love that. Maggie's done a good job trying to navigate kind of where we're at with what she's hearing from the public with, with maintaining water and all of those things. So we are trying to find a good balance here, but it is difficult for us. I don't think 128,000 will even touch irrigation or grubbing out grass in that area at all. Keep in mind, just Pocatello Creek is 22 acres. The irrigation system is inherited from ITD. We don't have great plans on it. We've been putting those together throughout the years. It needs replaced. The difficult part is when you're pinching pennies, do you put that money into interchanges or do you put that money into park systems where people are actually using that space? So just a lot of things to keep in mind. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here or anything like that. But I know Pocatello Creek to me is probably one of the more attractive interchanges. East Clark, that west side, I'd love to do something with the stormwater retention ponds. We're all in agreement when you come into Pocatello, you don't want to see that. And if we can do something to make it look more appealing, that's where I'd spend my money. And maybe we continue to chisel away at things. No matter what's there, whether it's grass or bushes or perennials, it's gonna collect trash. And so, because the wind never blows here,
Oh, no.
we're always gonna have to send people out to take care of those things. So just keep in mind whatever you choose to do. It's tough in the summertime to have enough manpower to do everything that we need to do.
So Maggie, in light of that comment, like just the 128,000 not going very far for 22 acres. I saw in the plans, they're called for another Pocatello sign. That wouldn't chew up the whole 128,000, but would that be a legitimate expense to, get at least a nice sign? And I'm thinking just focus around the sign area, including paying for a sign if the grant would allow that.
So one of the issues with signage is that we did get response from ITD, and they don't want to see any other entryway signs. So that may be a conversation that we can collaborate further with ITD as to why, because there's really no hazard in these signs. And so it may be an ongoing conversation that we may need to have. But within all of these designs, we have proposed entryway signage at all of the interchanges.
Okay.
The grant will not cover them though.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the current entryway signs were done in-house though, correct? And what was the cost? Was there an interfund cost there, or was it just done?
I believe Tom built those. I
And
don't
you're
know
Right.
what the
I
cost
do
was.
remember
about that one on Fifth Street, right?
Both of them.
Tom Kirkman, Public Works. The one on South Fifth there, we built that sign in-house, and I'm thinking it was between 10 and 20,000 is what we ended up spending on materials for that.
Does that
The rest
include,
of the signs throughout, that was long before my time. I don't
Yeah,
know
that
who
was actually a
built-
Chamber of Commerce
Right,
project
that's right.
on those
I think
other
those were
signs.
long overdue.
So
They
the
were long
one-
before me.
so that one on Fifth, does that include the lighting also, or is it just the lettering?
Yeah, that was just materials. I believe the lighting, if we had to put a full number on it, it was probably 25.
Okay.
I would say the other component to this is Maggie is following the grant restrictions, but Firewise does not include rock. And I think a lot of areas really do use rock in different textures and colors. That's fairly easy for us to maintain, right? You go out and spray if you get weeds coming up a couple times a year, which we couldn't incorporate into these designs because it wasn't permitted under the grant. So just, there's some components here that kind of put us behind the 8 ball on what we all might want to see here.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Councilman Nichols first.
Sorry. Go ahead.
You're the senior.
Tom, what are your thoughts on this? All of this is within the street system, so what do you think?
So on our end of this deal, we have to follow certain rules. So we have AASHTO requirements that require clear zones. So interchanges are 22 acres because they're made to have car runoffs. So dealing with federal highways, you have to be able to ensure that if a car loses control, it doesn't hit an immovable object. So there's a certain amount of windows in these interchanges that you can really do some work on, but there's a lot of areas around the perimeter that you can't. And so, to the point of like the Pocatello signs, I think if we were able to get ITD to cooperate on those, they're gonna have to be kind of in the middle more than on the edges because of that clear zone requirement. We also need to look at site triangle issues. I know that was one of the big things on Center when we were talking with the volunteer group that wanted to do some work up there is ITD was on site and they're like, nope, can't plant a tree here. Nope, can't do this, can't do that. So I think part of these plans on our end is just going to be making sure that we can meet all of those AASHTO requirements that we have to have. Because we definitely don't want to put something there that's gonna hurt somebody if there's a runoff problem.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Oh, or, yeah, Councilman Bates.
Yeah, just a couple questions real quick. So, I mean, and I want to say from the outset, I think we have to do something. At the risk of being politically incorrect, our entryways are ugly. Our corridors look terrible. And Northgate is a, number one example. But just looking at concept number 2 for the Pocatello Creek Exchange, you've got like these little garden bed type things on the edges. And I understand what Tom's saying, we'd have to collaborate with ITD, but is there room, and is it possible with these grant funds to fuse grass and just do projects kind of on these edges?
That's possible. ITD has been in the whole process of this, and they have reviewed these, and the only sticking point was the signs.
Okay.
So the vision triangles, that has all been considered and accounted for. But yes, that's definitely an option. It's just kind of the direction of the city that, we're trying to do the Firewise more native situation, which led us to where we're at now. But I understand what you're saying with, using just the funding that we have to beautify parts of it that we can afford. So.
And I guess, Anne, I mean, we've talked about this, and every place that the city has tried to do something like this, and this is my opinion, I don't feel like it's been successful. But if we took a smaller attempt at this, like this, I mean, what are your concerns? Or
I'd love to try it at a smaller scale. I do think those smaller corridors are your window to do the zero-scaping. I'm looking at from a time perspective on what we can maintain reasonably well. But yeah, I'd love to, I agree with you. I do think they're ugly. I think grass is okay on the whole, but I'd love to see some texture, some different types of plants there, some flower beds along the edges. I do want to see some color out. We're okay with that. I just know that if we grub out 22 acres and think that it's going to cost me less time, that won't be correct.
Okay, and thank you. And one last question, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I'm mistaken, but the right-of-way and the beautification of the Northgate Parkway, does the developer not have any responsibility towards that?
So my understanding of that is that I don't really remember exactly. I'd have to do some research on the agreements, but I think the funding dried up, and that's what happened on that.
Okay. Yeah, and it was my understanding that our concept was, at least not the middle strip, but as the development happens, like the Portneuf, that they did landscape those areas, those kind of right-of-way areas there. That was my understanding, that the plan was for private development as they fill in, but not the middle, those islands there. So, and we have several Councilwoman Swanson, then we'll go from there. Councilman, we'll start with you.
Okay, thanks. So my preference would be that we have a very clear understanding of our budget here, because clearly the number, this $184,000? 28. Shoot. Okay, $128,000 is what we have to work with, and all the projects presented here, although I would love to see every one of them done, and we certainly do need it, we can't do that. So it seems to me, and just correct me if I'm wrong, that the next step here would be to create, based on the desires expressed here regarding the drainage, I agree, that's a huge eyesore. And then the prioritization of this, and ITD's preference that we prioritize this City Creek exit. Would it be possible to have the next step be a plan to fit what we can into that budget with the input of Anne and her group about what we can reasonably maintain? Is that a next step that's reasonable?
That's going to be included in this project, yes. We're working on the budgets for these.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. So that would be my request. Can I make that request without all of council and nodding their heads? But that seems to me to be the best way to move forward on this project.
And there's probably a deadline, I'm assuming, on that 128K.
Right.
There to,
My question for the budget, is that materials and we provide the labor, or is that materials and we bring somebody in to complete that project? Because I know the list Braden has for our staff right now, and it's long. So I guess we need to know, is the expectation for us to install that, or is the expectation in for somebody else to install that?
based on what you said, like from the outside, I think you have so much going, we should just try to see what we can do with the third party would be my recommendation.
And fold that into the budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then Councilman Mangum, and then Paulson.
So a couple of my questions were kind of hit on. But one of them is the expiration on these funds and on this grant. Some of these grants have a time frame and it has to be completed within a certain window. Is there a window on this grant? Hey, the whole gang's here.
Yeah.
Mayor, members of the council, Christine Howe, Grants Manager. The current expiration date is November of 2026, but we were informed that we'd be able to get a one-year extension, so we could have it through 2027.
Good to know.
Excellent. So the scope of the work was another question of mine of what we do, what we outsource it, what we do it in-house. We've kind of touched on that, but I think it's a great idea. It's a reasonable idea to say, let's do a third party, but there we incur another huge cost, I would imagine. So that's difficult to really think about. And then looking at, we have budgeting that we're coming up on for overall the city budget here pretty soon, and labor is gonna be a huge factor there. So with that, you said that the average wage is $10.19?
Yep, that's it.
It'd be hard to find.
Step one.
It'd be hard to find people to do some of this work for $10.19. And then and some of those people who are in the higher steps, I don't know if it's reasonable to tell them to go out and to, mow some lawns. And I don't know if that's in their job descriptions either. So I don't know. I'm just looking at the costs here. It's a lot of costs. I agree that something needs to be done because it is an eyesore. But reasonably speaking, how do we do that? The other thing is we do have funds in our excess reserves, but those are one-time monies and those should be one-time expenses. And I don't think you can really take those monies and throw them into something that's going to require maintenance. But to initiate it, can we budget for it in the future? Can we look at revenues and say that there's revenues that are coming or will come, or interests, or?
Well, that's certainly my thought. It's a long-term deal to like implement all these, which I agree are hugely important, but I think the council should just help prioritize the projects and then just look at next budget cycles.
Next question is purchasing. Are we purchasing locally, or are we looking to purchase from, I don't know, right? Like from Washington or somebody in California or Texas, or are we looking at some possible greenhouses that are somewhere, hopefully within the Pocatello area, and if not, in the state of Idaho?
We use, when we're buying plants, we try to use as many local as we can, but on occasion there are some growers outside of Pocatello. Some of them are in Utah, some of them are in the Northwest. But on the whole, we do spend quite a bit of our money with local greenhouses.
So overall, cost-wise, I know we have 128 to work with for the implementation for a portion, and then 17.4 to go back to the Parks Department. Overall, what is the cost of this total project being completed?
The total grant amount is $257,400.
Sorry, how much?
$257,400.
So if we were to, wish list wise, if we were to be able to accomplish everything that's being proposed here in this project, what does that cost? Estimate.
I don't have that yet.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I imagine.
Multi-million.
And one of the things that I believe will be in the deliverables is a phased approach. And we can prioritize, like we've been talking about, what's the most important, what's phase one that we can move forward with when we get funds available. And Pocatello Creek, what can we initiate throughout this grant?
Awesome.
Okay, so we've got Councilman Paulson and then Nichols, and then we should really move on after that. I have kind of an ending thought after that, but go ahead.
Sorry, I'm gonna be short and sweet. We literally live in a desert steppe. That is our climate. I really like all of this and the xeriscaping, et cetera, but I want to vocally say my opposition to just grass. I hate it. So that's my point. We don't have to talk about it.
Funding that we have, would it be appropriate to just come up with signage and beds around those with the type of design Maggie's got here? Realistically, I think that's probably all there's money for, which would give us a little bit of time to see how people like it, what it looks like. But it wouldn't be a complete overhaul of any of the interchanges either. And then I think I know Tom and myself and PVP have been talking about adjustments to the west side of Clark Street. So we've been looking at different options for that, and we can implement what Maggie's got there too, into kind of what we were looking at to address just those two things first. The grant first, and then maybe we work on that east side of Clark.
Yeah, that was gonna be my kind of wrap up, like, so you have direction that kind of getting the pulse of I know Councilman Nichols, you had something too, but just getting the pulse of the council, like, am I hearing correctly that phase one would be try to get that 174,000 spent on kind of the perimeter areas of Pocatello Creek, and then the next priority be Clark Street improvements? That's kind of the pulse, the vibe from the council I wanted to gauge, so you have some direction.
Stormwater area, that
Yes,
triangle.
those swells there. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree that the west side of the Clark Street exit is really important. But I also think this section all along the UP fence here is pretty important. It's a smaller area. It's I think only about 8 feet deep until you get to the fence.
Yeah, and highly
So we could have some
visible.
really big bang for the buck there. And then a question for you all here. I noticed that you had some Virginia creeper growing up the existing chain link fence. Did you look at any other site obscuring options? Because as I understand, the city doesn't own that fence. So, just depending on what ultimately might happen with that fence, have we looked at other site screening options?
Yeah, so the other option was the tall ornamental grasses that you see in concept 2. So you see the similar ones around town that most of them here are called Carl Forester grasses that are planted. So this is kind of more of the native version. They get about 5 to 6 feet tall. If they're probably wouldn't in that area if we're not watering them much. So maybe 5 feet. And so that would be because of the narrowness of those strips. And when they kind of neck down, currently there's those arborvitae that are overgrown and there's just not enough room there for those type of screening options. So that is what we had discussed as being a viable option, other than the Virginia creeper, because you're right, that might kind of destroy the fence.
Right. So did you explore, I know you're focused on plantings here, but did you explore any more hardscape type of looks like fencing, decorative fencing or anything like that? Or was it just pretty much limited to the plantings?
The grant is limited to the plantings, yes. So we didn't really talk about anything other than that.
Right. I think something that might be worth exploring in the future.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so just to summarize this, to get the pulse of the council, I think I'm hearing Pocatello Creek, try to get our grant money spent down, work on those perimeter areas, and then maybe kind of a tie between west side Clark Street interchange and this strip along Pocatello Avenue. Would that be good direction to give Parks and whoever there? Are we in agreement
Sorry,
with
Mayor,
that?
could you repeat that? I missed part of what you just
Sure, just to kind of give Parks and Rec and whoever else direction. Priority number one would be spend down that 174,000 in grant over at Pocatello Creek with just taking little elements of the plans in the corners. And then priority number two would be kind of a tie between the west side of Clark Street interchange and then this strip along Pocatello Avenue. Am I hearing that? So if we were to give the folks direction, that would be it?
Yes, for me.
Yeah.
Okay, and then long-term plan, budget cycles and all that, a lot of discussion. I think all the other areas like Northgate is highly important, and we've got, this is great, we've got some kind of a roadmap for the future, but I think community entrances are hugely important, and we want our community to look welcoming, and we've worked on some signage in that, but I'm just hearing a lot out in the public there that our entrances need some work, so I think it's hugely important.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see a plan that would include some costs for some of these projects at the budget when we start talking about the budget.
Okay.
To see if we could implement some of these things and budget for the future maintenance and the implementation of these things for this next coming year.
Okay, I like it. And then just one other quick thing, that are we in agreement that on the Pocatello Creek, we use a third party out there? Because Parks is so strapped with building things that would, is that the direction? Kind of look at an outside party to help you with that?
If
rather
it's
than
cheaper, that's my, yeah, I was gonna say, not if it's more money.
If I may on that, the grant funds are for contracted services, so that's what it's intended for.
Okay.
Additional money there.
Okay, so we will move along. Thank you, this was great.
Can I take like a 2-minute?
Yeah, me too.
You can, yeah, go ahead. Yep, yeah, we'll take I'm not hearing a 10-minute break. Okay, 10-minute break, thank you. We'll reconvene at 11:07. Go ahead and reconvene. We'll move on to our next agenda item, but before that, we're talking about beautification and community entrances and all of that, but I have to give a shout out to what's happening just across the street today. And I know we've had help from Public Works, Sanitation, and Parks and Rec. If you drive over along Pocatello Avenue, yesterday that was filled with weeds and junk and debris behind that fence. And beautification, we just need to chip away with this with the curb appeal, but that's phenomenal what happened over there this morning. There were garbage trucks and equipment and crews everywhere, but great job, guys, with that cleanup. Now I can pull out of the parking lot and instead of this is an eyesore. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next agenda item. It's the Crest Development Project Update in Port Neuf Valley Development, and we have Mia, Kate, and Brent here. Welcome.
Thank you. So I wanted to follow up on a couple of things because we have a presentation that we want to give to the council for new members. I know Corey, Ann, and I have spent some time talking, and Brent's been on the council for a while. The presentation will give you an update of exactly how our organization works from top to bottom. I think there's some misconceptions about how we get a lead, what happens to that lead, what happens after we get the lead, how we follow up, where that record is kept, how it's kept, if there's a NDA on it, etc. And then how it's also financed, and each part of our files, how those are kept for both clients and the city and ourselves. So I'm gonna I'll talk to Brent and get that, we have that all prepared. And I think it's really important because there's a lot of misconceptions of how our organization under a memo of understanding operates within the city. But We would also like to express, I know that the airport board, Molly, made the comment that they were not told about the CREST project, but we were in touch with Mayor Blad, the airport itself, Christy and Alan and Brent, and he can maybe speak more towards that, but I have always wanted to have more transparency with that board. I come from economic development in aviation. I have a lot of expertise in that. My partner is a commercial pilot for United. He also runs their kind of Q and A department. So aviation is really, I have a lot of colleagues and contacts coming from Seattle. Aviation was big, always big in my background. And when I was asked to do the airport, it's because of the economic development side, not the aviation side. But I am familiar with the aviation side, and I work very close with Alan and Christy. As well, Kristen Jensen sits on that board, and she's Power County. So she is American Falls ED, and we actually support Kristen. We meet with her frequently. I had a conversation with the Power County commissioners just this week, so we all sat down and had a lot of conversation there. Kristen was invited, but she wanted me to speak to them on behalf of the airport myself. But we meet all the time. In fact, we talk weekly. And so she sits on that board, and she is apprised of everything that we are doing because she has signed an NDA with us. So she knows about the airport, and she can bring that to that commission. But it was always our understanding that that commission was not on the economic development side. Usually at airports, the commission that advises the GM or the aviation is not the same group that's doing the actual development. They're not out recruiting, they don't do the TRIs, they don't do any of that stuff with the actual businesses. That's what Commerce gives us the authority to do. They look to us to do that. And we recently did that with the other project that we got out there, SME. If you saw that, that's quite a process they had to go through before they could sign the lease in order to qualify. And it's the first time since 2014 that we were awarded that TRI for that client.
Which is tax reduction.
A tax
incentive.
reimbursement incentive. Yeah, so we don't have upfront grants in Idaho like some of the other states, so it's between us, usually Arizona and Texas. And Texas and them do give these incentives, and Idaho, it's a reimbursement incentive. So basically they're paying in and they would be eligible for a percentage up to 30% for a number of years to have that reimbursement to them. And that was enough to sway them to actually sign the agreement and to come here. So that's a really good opportunity for them. And I'm glad we went through the process because we almost missed out on that. So the CREST project, moving forward, we went through the did you want to say anything?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So we moved through the process of doing the development side with Jonathan O'Neill, and then we saw sort of a stall area because we were in between budget cycles with the city, and in the past we would come to Brent or the mayor, and if we needed something on behalf of this project, we would excuse me, let them know. And if it's something that was consulting or could come out of professional services, they would pay us and we would facilitate that process. Brent and I, after talking many, many times, decided that that's not a great way. That's not the way I'm used to running an economic development organization. So we decided that once things settled down with having a new mayor, and we also do Chubbuck and the county and power for the airport, we decided that it would be better if we could anticipate what those costs would be during your budget cycle for next year and determine one of these, I could give you one of these project asks for funding for each thing. So this is an example. 3 years ago, we hired Steve Van Beek. He's still on contract with us. He is an actual aviation expert in economic development. So he's out of DC. He was recommended to us by one of the top GMs in the nation, and we were very lucky to get him. And so we're not equipped financially to pay him that fee. And so we let the city know how much that was, and they gave us the funding, and we did all the consulting and facilitation that needed to be done with him, and then he presented to the community. And he did this twice, and he would like to come back and talk to Alan and the council about what he feels like could happen at the airport. He is in very much support of this CREST project. So why is this important? Because in the background, that was $50,000 that was allocated for this consulting. And I feel like if we would have had these, been able to submit these each time, you would have one of these for each of these things so that you would know next year, there's 5 projects we're working on that are main projects. And each one of these is gonna anticipate a certain cost. If we do not meet these costs, we have been spending our own money at Bannock Development, and we're really not funded for that. I mean, each of these projects, we try to be project specific. And so there's a stall period. While there was this election, Mayor Blad, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but like we had agreed that money would come to this project for the marketing part so that we could move on. But anticipating that there was a slowdown, our office went ahead and interviewed everyone that was interested in the CREST project. So hotelers, developers, anybody that came to us after it was advertised and in the media, and then our own outreach, we interviewed all of them and we cataloged them all. So we currently have lots of people waiting for this next step, but we didn't want to have to do this next step ahead of the or after the marketing part. So we already decided to get all of the people that were interested, and as many as we could, and interview them so that we weren't losing more time on this project.
Yeah, and Mia Kate, I think Councilman Mangum had a quick question.
Yeah.
So I appreciate previous administration's attempt at helping to fund the marketing aspect of this. However, though, my question is, who stands to take ownership of this project in its completion in its entirety? Because if the city does not, technically own the project or own the rights to this, to the CREST idea, then I don't know if it's necessarily wise for the city of Pocatello to spend money on marketing that said project. Now, if it's a joint project with joint ownership or a joint venture between us, Chubbuck, the county, American Falls, then we can all, I would say, collaborate on that effort of creating that marketing. But I just want to know who takes the ownership of this project. It's on our land at our airport, but is it our ownership? Is it our owned idea? Or is it Portneuf Valley Development Corporation's project and idea? Like, who takes ownership?
We
So who is
facilitate
responsible?
the projects under the MOU for not just Pocatello, but Chubbuck and Howard County at the airport and Bannock County. And so, and Brent can speak on this too, but so the project itself is a city project. It's not our project. We facilitate the project under economic development, and then we facilitate the whole process to make sure that the project happens. Once the project becomes, so say for example, you get 4 different developers that take over that first 72. This particular part is just saying, this is your sales process to get investors here. Once that project, without this, we're just giving them a piece of paper that says this is the feasibility. And these are billionaires. These are high-level Marriotts and Hiltons, and they expect that they would get a CIM, or we call it a marketing book or a marketing analysis. They want to know from the feasibility all the things we have to offer. You're probably familiar, all the things we want to offer, what the property is, what they could do in each section of this project. And then without this, we're just giving them a paper. We're not going to get very good leverage. We have introduced and interviewed several of them, and we talked to your CEO even. But even in that meeting, we were just giving them very low level, here's what's happening. They expect in a project of this size to actually have the marketing book done. As far as marketing in the future, once we get those people on board, they would be responsible for themselves.
marketing.
Right. And if there's 4 or 5 different developers, which I personally, if you look at Ada County and other big projects I've worked on in other states, if you get one developer and something happens with that one developer, that whole project could go under. So it's my, hope that we attract many different developers in different areas, not like the hotelers would be different, and they're okay with that. They're used to that.
So a portion of my questioning is really informational. Some people in the community don't understand that. And so that's kind of why I asked some of these questions that I asked. Some of them are goofy questions.
That's okay.
But I want the public to know where those dollars are going if we so choose to help fund that portion of that. And I think that it creates clarity for who owns the project and why the project is being proposed and how these people are being targeted as investors, the development, the developers, all of these things are huge factors. So now we look at not only, so I digress. So this is a huge project and a huge undertaking. And where does our public works come into play? Because there's a lot of water that's going to be needed. Electrical is going to be needed out there. Sewer is going to be needed out there. Road work needed out there. This is a huge cost. And so I'd love to hear, this is great. I agree, you need the marketing plan. But before you start looking at marketing, we got to look at feasibility if we can actually accomplish that out there and get some sewer and water and toilets flushing out there and garbage picked up. I'd hate to have a hotel built out there with 300 rooms and only 150 toilets flush, or only one sink turns on. You know what I mean? Like it'd be terrible.
So let me loop you in a little bit on some of the things we're working on to that end. So this is a master plan. It's conceptual. It's not set in stone. And all those components and pieces are things that are part of moving this project forward, and we understand that. We are in process of trying to attain a grant that would help to analyze and design those upgrades that will need to happen for this project and the airport as a whole. We do recognize there's a lot of infrastructure updates and needs that need to happen out there. And so this is a stepped approach to developing the city-owned property, which we can't sell.
Right.
And it's been sitting like this for decades.
Right.
Hoping that someone would come in and develop it. And it just isn't happening. It's not going to just happen. And so what we're trying to do is put a plan together that will help promote the development of this property, that will become a beneficial revenue source for the city, but also it will provide opportunities for investors to build their properties as well. And those infrastructure costs are something that we would have to analyze it and initiate with those developers, that just like any other place in the city, if someone's coming to develop a piece of property, there's infrastructure costs that those developers will pay for. And so it's very similar in that nature. But we need to be participants in that because this is city-owned property that we can't just sell to them. And so there's got to be some sort of partnership in place to move these things along.
I completely agree with you. There has to be a partnership, and the city has to be mainly the spearhead, really, of this because it's our property. I just want to, and the impact fee, I completely understand the impact fees also, right? But we're looking at, like, say, sewer, for example. How does WPC play into this? Like, what? Because right now we have a certain capacity.
Right.
So we developed this massive development out here, right? How does that impact WPC? And do we still have the capacity to take on that? Do we have to increase the footprint of our wastewater treatment, or what are we doing?
Yeah, those are all things that we have to continue to analyze and understand. And like I mentioned, we're hoping to get this grant that was submitted a while ago. We haven't heard back on it yet. But if not, we do need to move forward with those designs and that strategic planning of all that infrastructure. And that's definitely a step that we need to move forward.
Yeah.
And we need to understand what is going to be out there and have a really concrete plan. And that's part of why we're looking at the whole airport plan as well.
Because there's an industrial side as well.
This is just a small component of the airport property. And it's going to take a lot more infrastructure to address the entirety of that site.
I appreciate that.
So I totally agree with what you're saying, and those steps are in the works, and we need to get those really ironed out.
So those are part of the study that you're proposing or you're initiating?
We're moving forward with a grant that would help with that information.
Okay.
We haven't obtained that grant yet to do those studies.
Okay.
If we don't, we need to figure out where those funds are going to come from to design the.
What is the cost for that study?
Oh, Christine, do you have the grant number? Is she here?
I think she left.
What was
He
it?
walked back.
It was $750,000.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, Councilman Nichols had a
It's a
question.
lot of stuff, yeah.
I apologize.
Oh, you're fine.
And Mayor, I have several questions. If it's all right with you, I'd just like to knock through them from an efficiency standpoint. Okay. So we have in our package, we have a market analysis prepared by, looks like Pendulum and Crest, 117 pages long. How does that differ from this M&A book?
So the process of doing a development of this nature, to bring the components together, whoever those are, hotels, stadium, Mayor Blood talked about the convention center, everything that's in Crest, that's what it stands for, convention, recreation, entertainment, sports, and travel. And also working with the aviation side to increase aviation travel, commercial travel. And then we also have an industrial side where we just placed, SME, and we're working on several other businesses that we're bringing in. So we've been working with Brent and the airport and looking at that whole property for the very reasons Corey just said. And he kind of knows because we've discussed the project, but this feasibility had to happen because in order for me, when I was given the go to take this project and put it at the airport, I don't do anything just by whatever's in my head. I hire an expert. So we hired an expert to do not only the implementation design, but also to do the feasibility. If that feasibility study would have come back negative, I would have come back to the city and told them it is of my opinion that we need to rethink this project. So the feasibility is every hotel is going to want to look at that, but this marketing part gives each individual, the hotels, the designers, the retail, the whatever, the sports stadium, it gives them their own ROI. How can they benefit from this project? The feasibility study doesn't address that. The feasibility study just says, yes, this is a great project for this area, or no, you might want to rethink it.
So then in this market analysis, does it conclude ultimately that there's a demand for this project today?
Yes, and actually the demand is even higher now. So we provided reports to our board recently that over the next 5 years, $85 billion is going to be spent on youth sports and sports travel. And we, in our own area, they're expanding in Idaho Falls. Twin wants us a team like baseball team. And we do believe that we would be bypassed to the south with our investors currently, because we have areas below us that are looking for some of that market, that market could be gathered right here. And with our airport, it makes it even better.
Right.
So
with a favorable market analysis, also we have some drawings done. Do we have any private sector entities are interested in doing the project
Yes.
right now?
Yes, they are waiting for us to give them their ROI because they're like, we're very interested. As soon as we broke the news on the project, we got lots and lots of calls, and so did the city. So we interviewed them and cataloged them confidentially so that we could have conversations with them about the future of this project. And we've met with bankers and others who are very interested in pulling this project together. It's not like we're like, hey, we're going to give you, your marketing and your book, your MA book, and you're going to come back to us. I mean, eventually, and to Corey's point, eventually those developers will group together on what portions they would like to do in that project, and they will, they'll have their own interests and ideas of how they want to invest. It's also in a TIF district, so that also, makes things a little bit different.
So we have entities interested, ready to do this. They're now waiting for an M&A book in order to proceed?
Yeah, they want to know what we have to offer to them. Normally in these big projects, we don't give them a paper like this. We give them a very professional, they're expecting a very professional project overview that's made for them.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can do it themselves, but they want to know from us that this is what the commitment is.
Right, and the marketing analysis that we have in our package here, who paid for that?
The feasibility study, the TIF district did.
The market
The
analysis
PDA.
that we have. That was PDA?
Yes.
Yeah, that was through the PDA. They paid for that market analysis.
Yeah, we facilitated it and they reimbursed us. We did not take a portion for any of our work, nor have we ever. But because we can't continue to do that, we are going to take our administrative costs from now on.
Right, and then just one final question here.
Yeah, no.
So whose idea was this? I mean, where did it come from originally? It's really a big idea.
Originally, we had, it's long going. I've spent over 4,800 hours on this project, just me. This project was originally with the county. We were approached by some developers that were also working in Ada County on a project to do something similar. And they were like, we have some teams we could put here. You guys could play Idaho Falls, possibly involve Utah, get the corridor going. And so these recreation projects also were something that we were hearing from the public. So frequently you guys get stuff. We get a lot of calls from the public, you need to build this or you should build that. So I approached Mayor Blad and said, what about a recreation project in our spherical economic development, for amenity necessity? That same year, we went to our state economic development, and the economists said that our area was lacking significantly in recreation, in collecting that recreation area, and also in professional services.
Right, and
So we get all our data from them. So that's kind of how it came. These are all great questions. These are all things. This is why I think I'm really liking being able to present to the council, because for many times I've wanted to even sit on like the airport board because of my expertise. I am the ED, so I could help out and at least answer their questions. Or the county or the city giving you better updates on what's actually happening with the project, because it's just not conceptual. We have a whole entire file just on this and how many hours we've dedicated.
So let's say that you get your M&A book.
Uh-huh.
When would you expect to see, bulldozers on the ground and something happening? I know that this market analysis has a phased approach and some really aggressive timetables in it. Are you seeing the timetables laid out in this market analysis being realistic?
For just the marketing part?
No,
This
for
is just to create the book itself.
Well, I know, but in the market analysis, they have timeframes for
Yeah.
completion of phase 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
and et
but
cetera.
not for the project itself, just in the marketing phases. So the marketing phase would go, this is the book that you're getting, this is all the information for you. Then we would take that, and that would have to be implemented. So if we wanted to do, this phase is just to create that in the marketing. Then in the marketing, we also have to do We also have to do the, we'll have to do the digital, the creative assets, figure out if we're gonna put it online to sell the marketing book. This is just for the mainline interest of the investors we currently have, so we don't lose
Yeah, I
them.
think he was just asking, well, when do you anticipate dirt being turned?
Right, but I'm just explaining that on here, we have the timeline, but that timeline on here is really just for this aspect of it. That's not saying that the bulldozers are gonna go there. That would be when the investor says, yes, Mia Kate, I would like to move forward on this project. And at that time, we would know. It's a multi-phase project. If you look at any of these projects that are going on throughout the state, it's a legacy project. It's a project that can start getting revenue on it, especially with the hotels and the actual sporting arena. So it's not something that's going to immediately be this, billion-dollar project. It's a very long project.
Yeah, Councilman Paulson.
You had said something about $85 billion, but Idaho's GDP, if you round up or round down, is basically $100 billion. So what is this nationally, internationally?
It's nationally. It's nationally, but the Pacific Northwest, Idaho included, is because we don't have a lot of these amenities, is becoming, there's more eyes on it. In fact, even in my Taiwan mission, they were like, we would love to sponsor baseball or whatever when we spoke to them for Southeast Idaho. So it's definitely, and if you look at other cities, so we looked at other cities that were about our same size and what revenues are generated from the recreation and travel and tourism, family, these type of programs or developments. And they're all very successful. So if you look at Spokane, I know Corey and I have talked about this before, but like if you look at Spokane, which is much bigger, but for the MSA, it's still like if you include Idaho Falls, us, Twin, as far as an area for these travel sports and also for recreation and for local, what it would bring, 1,000 internships and different things for the university, potential for, them to have sports management programs and different programs in aviation and all out in this project. If you look at Spokane as an example, their Hoop Fest, I sat on their original team. That Hoop Fest was 10 teams, then 100 teams. Guess how many teams are on a Hoop Fest now? 8,000 3-on-3s.
And they're worldwide.
They get $1 billion in their recreational tourism, but they also created these amenities that allow people to come in. And why do we want these? Well, for two reasons. One of our biggest visionary sponsors is Portneuf Health Medical Center. And Jordan Herget, who's not here, but and I've spoke to Nate, they have doctors and families that they're trying to attract here and people to employ and keep people that are here. And one of the things he said is we don't have the amenities that we need. We have some great ones. We have the MEC Center. We have, the county is developing a little bit better on the wellness complex. All of these things are essential. But to bring these people in also goes along with our foundational idea that there's a one visit. People come here, they see who we are, and they want to come back. Maybe they want to relocate. Maybe they want to live here. So working with tourism is super important from a development standpoint. And so there is a big market for this, I guess, to answer your question. There's a big market. We're just missing out on that market the feasibility study showed, and they're going to go elsewhere because other of these areas, even in our area, are thinking about, even increasing. You probably saw that they're thinking about doing things in Idaho Falls, and we're in touch with their ED. And, we meet on a state level, so we hear each other's projects and we know that there's all this stuff going there. One thing about us that is super cool is we have an airport, and our airport's amazing. Our airport is so underestimated of how amazing it is compared to other airports in this entire nation. And that's one thing that that Steve MV came here and told us. I mean, he's like, you're so lucky to have this asset. And so flying in and out or capturing that sports, recreation, and tourism also is developing, you know, in other areas, amenities for our own selves. Because we're not just trying to attract tourism dollars, we're also trying to attract what's good for our area.
Yeah. Councilwoman Swanson has a question.
Yeah. At this point, I don't need a whole lot of convincing that it looks good, right? I mean, it's an exciting product to talk about. You've talked about a lot of the economics behind it, the airport advantage that we have. But I did want to bring up a couple of concerns. The first one is, one thing I've heard from citizens is that we get shown these beautiful watercolor renderings of what's going to happen. And I remember seeing one for Northgate that had a big fountain in the middle and all this mixed use property. And that was probably almost 10 years ago now. And that doesn't look like that at all. I mean, so there's a sense of, I think, historical disappointment. I point to Hoku, that still comes up in people's minds about these types of projects that get a lot of press and then don't really deliver, don't meet expectations, I guess. And that may be from a rather uneducated, but certainly public view that I think really needs to be taken into consideration here. And one of my questions was, how do you hedge against that? How do you get enough guarantee or diversity in your developers where you've got folks who are frankly penalized for not, finishing their part of the deal? The last thing I want is to sink a bunch of city money into whatever it is, grants, income, and left with a half-done or sort of like a few hotels and a roller rink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An important part of that is to have a really clear plan of what we want to do moving forward. And I mean, these are very complex projects and there's a lot of moving parts, and we need to really collaborate on how we make these things move forward and establish these partnerships with developers and these private entities that will help move these things forward, and have a diversity of private entities involved at their, and have a very clear buy-in on who's doing what and how, and have those standards and those expectations in place as we're moving this forward. Now, there are sometimes things happen in the economy and things do change. And I think Northgate's been a great example of a project that was derailed by COVID and things that happened with COVID. And it changed how that project is evolving. Now, is it going to be successful? It absolutely is a successful project, but it is different than what people were initially anticipating because the market changed. And so things like that do happen, and we have to understand that. But these are years
Legacy
of growth
projects.
And things that happen. It's not something that we can just go in and turn the dirt right away and do.
Right.
And but I think having those diversity of partners and having a really clear understanding of who our partners are, and that's what this book will help us establish, is who are our partners going to be in the development of this property. And then we can move forward with those agreements and create those partnerships with those property or with those developers.
And I want to ask one follow-up question is related to the funding for the book. Have other entities, governmental entities, been asked to contribute to any of this kind of pre-work? I mean, what I'm hearing so far is that Pocatello would
This is a unique.
absorb all of
This is
that.
a unique situation where this is property that the city owns, and so
Right.
we are going to be a partner in what happens in the development of this property, regardless. And we've tried to move forward in this approach where we're waiting for people to come to us to tell us what they want to develop, and we're just hoping that it happens. And it's been decades now that we've had this property, and very, very little has actually happened out there, waiting for people to come. waiting for people to come. And this is a huge asset for us that we can provide some financial stability for the airport. We can provide revenue for the city to help with property tax relief. As we can generate more commercial and industrial use out there, that only helps with our citizens
Yeah,
and
and
their
I just want to be
property
clear,
tax.
I don't need convincing on that point.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing.
But it is unique.
If it all lands though, the preparation costs land on Pocatello's shoulders, that just seems a little unfair.
We don't
Because the
see
Bannock
that.
County and American Falls ought to be
Right.
contributing or asked to contribute to any kind of pre-work funding that would go into this.
I think part of it is it's in a TIF district, so none of that will go to Power County. They won't receive revenues off of it. This is revenue for the city.
I see, okay.
And it's airport property, so the more parties you get involved in that, there's already 5 entities. We got to deal with FAA, aviation, there's the tribe, there's Power County, and then the city. So it's like, it's very complicated, and that's why I hired the experts. But I understand what you're saying. I think we need to separate. One of the biggest things, I would have never even said we'll facilitate this type of project if I didn't do some homework on what happened with some of the others. And if you look at the Northgate situation from an economic development standpoint, that was very developer controlled. This is your property. This is the city's property. I wanted the city to be able to have ultimate say so that that kind of thing did not happen, so that we held feet to the fire with our end in the private side, so that there wasn't an intermediator. This party, this organization, no disrespect, but did not do their job in that process. They were not doing economic development as an organization in that Northgate process, because we would have made sure that the facilitation happened. The same with Frigitech. I was just coming on board, and I was the person that was like, I think there's a problem here. I vet every single business that goes out there, and I do a process with all of them that is very transparent and open. I know I've told you, you can come and sit with me and you can look at how each of these are vetted so that we don't run into the problem. We don't want just designs. I see those designs in my office, and I've spent 4,800 hours on this project. So I'm like, I see the future of it, and we want to sell that. Brent understands, Mayor Blad did, former council. But I do believe in what you're saying is that, in the past, no one was really around to put the feet to the fire. I'm here to do that with this. We either move forward with the next steps, and granted, our budget is this big. We don't sometimes even know if we can get paid. So we are asking for the city and for all of our entities to invest in themselves, and we'll do these projects for you. But it needs more investment. We can't afford to do even recruiting without more income, but we're also saving a great amount of money because we are a quasi-government entity that can do things much faster than if you just had a person in the government office that's just allowed to do this project. These are very big legacy projects, and yes, they seem very big, but directly to you, we're sort of taking on that. Like I said, if the feasibility would have come back, I'm a neutral party and I'm on behalf of the city and the developers. I would say this project has no teeth. I'm not here to say just push the project if it's not going to work. We didn't have that before, because if we would have had that, we were listening to the developers. When I came on board with the Northgate plan, I actually approached them and said, I do not believe this would work. I come from a tech background, and I do not believe that what you have outlined here is really what can happen. And I was very unpopular for that, but I had to speak up because I want projects that are going to create revenue for the city and be great for our communities, not something that's going to fail, including businesses.
Yeah, I've got a question over here.
I do take offense to saying that we're not doing our jobs, because quite frankly, you either haven't been here or every time you have been, you say it's under NDA. So how are we supposed to respond to that? That's my only comment.
I'm not saying you're not doing your job. I didn't mean it like that. I should restate what I'm saying is that projects like these require an additional investment. Like we cannot fund this project for this city, is I guess what I'm saying. And I know Brent and I have talked about this, and that's why he does want me to come. And to be totally honest, we have asked in the past, and I don't know if Brent wants to speak to this, but I have asked to be on these committees, to meet with you guys in special session, and I have never had that opportunity other than to come to you and give you an update. This is totally different than an update, because that's typically what we're used to doing with our other investors.
Yeah, Brent, did you have something to add to that?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, then, yeah, Councilman Bates, and then Nichols.
So I'm going to disagree with Councilmember Swanson just real quick. I'll need some convincing on this. When I read through the market analysis, for one, it's sports driven, which the national comparables, Westfield, Indiana. It's a suburb of Indianapolis, 30 minutes outside of Indianapolis. Ocoee, Florida. It's a suburb of Orlando. Bettendorf, Iowa is 4 cities that are 380,000 people. New Lenox, Illinois is a suburb of Chicago. Nothing in here looks like Pocatello to me. So can you speak to that?
Well, Jonathan, who was originally the designer for this, he's done lots of these. Like, we picked him because he's very high up in the recreation industry. And we had him come out here ahead of time and say, this is what we've got, look at our area. And he was like enamored by it. He just felt like there was a huge market. It isn't his typical type of project, but he actually agreed to it. We paid him very little. He gets millions for these projects. We paid him $58,000. So he came out as a favor, and he's like, I'm going to come out and look and see if this is something that would be really good. And he just really grew on him. Mayor Blad came with us, and we worked with the National Youth Sports and Travel, which is a completely separate group. And those are all experts. So I'm just like you. I had to be convinced. I have to be convinced. I'm probably the worst. I just told you. I called out Frigitech. I called out Northgate. I'm like, Hoku wouldn't have happened on my time. It wouldn't, because I like to know that these are legitimate things, because I'm spending my time on this and spending money, especially our money that we've mostly spent, and we don't have a lot of that. And so we can get another feasibility study. This one's only good for 2 years, but I mean, as most of them are, because things can change in the economy or administration, and we're already into it this far. So I understand your hesitation. I totally do. But I feel like even if we got another one from another entity in the recreational sports, there's only like a top 3. They're using one of the top 3 of the experts. So it's like, we can keep getting them, and they can either keep being positive, or we can just, you know what I mean? If it comes back negative on a second time, yeah, we'd have to think about it. But it's not something that we normally do. We don't normally order feasibility after feasibility.
It talks in here about phase 1, like sports it's all based around a sports facility.
And concert and a convention center.
Okay.
That was the biggest part. The convention center would hold. Mayor Blad, we were a little more modest. Mayor Blad wanted the convention center to be much larger. That's a very expensive portion. But as you can see, they're already building on in Idaho Falls. So there is a need for that. Our tourism has also come to us and said we don't have a facility, but not just a convention as far as concerts and meetings, but, big conventions.
So you've said you've used the words several or many people, investors that you've talked to. Are any of them sports?
Yes, they've taken part in some of the other developments that are going on right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any convention center people that build convention
I
centers?
do
develop
actually in
that are-
Seattle, yeah.
Okay.
And they actually have come out, they flew out and looked at the property and, yeah, I do. I'm actually, I come from a big area, so I know we haven't, you and I haven't
Yeah.
met much, but my background is from much bigger area. I spent time in M&A and New York City, so the cities are big, but I'm from a tiny area, so.
I'm mostly just, I'll just tell you exactly where I'm sitting on this. I agree entirely with what Council Member Swanson has said because, well, we just went through a campaign and I think we heard the same thing repeatedly. The history of Pocatello, how the taxpayers of Pocatello feel, is that we are routinely overpromised and underdelivered. And this, to me, has all the hallmarks of something that will be overpromised and underdelivered. And without more assurances of some kind that there's a there, I'm not willing to go down the road of this project. And as it relates to Portneuf Valley development, I think we just have to be completely honest of we spent not an insignificant amount of money from our perspective. I know you feel your budget is small, but I feel like on our end, this is asking for a lot of trust on our end towards you, towards Portneuf Valley development. If we had seen more successes in the past, I'd roll the dice, but I don't feel that right now because I don't trust that anything will be delivered. I'll just be totally honest with you.
Well, and this is your project. That's why I'm here. I can't move it forward. This was given to me to, on behalf of developing the property at the airport. I'm also working on other things there. And I think if you spend time in our office, I think we need to become less short-sighted on economic development, that it's, you brought this business, this business, this business. That's very linear. Economic development's spherical. We're working on amenity necessities. We're working on industrial. We're working on big businesses. We're working on the aviation side. We're working on housing. How's that working? And the jobs. So all of those categories are projects that we're working on at any one time. And you could come to our office. We have a breakdown of exactly how we're spending our hours. And those are very much should be included in what economic development does. Because if you have a person that just sits in Pocatello's office, one, they're very limited because they're limited by what the city lets them do. And that person alone can only tackle say the BREs, the business retention and expansions. We do that as well.
Yeah, we better move on to the next question.
Sure.
We're really running short on time.
Right. I'd just like to echo what Dakota said. I'm going to take some convincing on whether the feasibility of this whole project. I also wanted to point out when you're talking about all the time that's been put in by your organization, the city of Pocatello does contribute every year towards your organization. Is that correct?
Yes.
How much do we give you?
$75,000.
Okay. All right, sounds good. And then I think I did a poor job of asking one of my previous questions. So in phase one of the marketing study here, it has sports complex and infrastructure background, target completion early 2028. Trying to get a handle, is that at all realistic?
It would be very aggressive to have it completed in that timeframe. The funding to move this next step forward has been delayed.
For at least 8 months.
Yeah, so that date wouldn't be a feasibility.
Can you say that again? What's been delayed?
This next step in the process of the project to get this book.
The marketing book.
And so that's the feasibility dates in those phases, those anticipated dates, they would be delayed from those proposals.
We had an interest by several teams, and those teams are also being, in the sporting part, are also being catered to by other areas close to us. And so the actual directors of those particular sports, they were willing to hold them for a period of time, but this project is just, again, I feel how you feel. I have felt stagnated by the fact that we can't push some of these projects forward faster. It does take money for each of these phases. And I think the community thinks that we just get on a phone and we're trying to educate them and we just recruit people. Recruitment's very expensive and it takes a lot of relationship building. It's not Zoom calls and, I have to leverage a lot of my own colleagues. I'm well connected all over, and it takes a lot of my own connecting to be able to make that happen. And so I think we're at a crossroads, I feel like, in economic development of, we hear a lot of, we need more, we need you to bring this, we need this business, we need that. But there's a whole process that happens. I think if we're more collaborative and supportive of that process, I think we'll see, the community, when they come to visit me one-on-one, they're excited that they have this entity to help them and speak to them, refer them to the SBA and whatnot.
Yeah,
So
let's got another question here.
I appreciate your resume, and I appreciate hearing your resume and the connections. And this isn't one of my questions. I just have to make this comment because you had made the comment of using your connections to draw people. That's part of the job, right?
Oh, yeah.
And because my job as a bank manager and all these other things I do, it's my connections that draws the business or pushes the business forward. So I appreciate hearing it, but you see what I'm saying, I hope. We get it, right? But on the other side of this, we're talking about economic development and the BRE. A large part of economic development is the BRE.
Mm-hmm.
So to their point, I agree with their point that a lot of things have not materialized. It's been talked about, the drum's been beat, and there's a hole in the bottom of the drum. So I agree with their point wholeheartedly. But I also understand the other side here where there has to be an understanding that it's going to take some time. But how many times do we give it time and nothing materialize? So what I would like to see personally is I'd like to see some phase work on paper. Phase 1 would be the market study. Phase 2 would be the feasibility study. Phase 3 would be a report back from developers or from whatever. So that way we can see that step by step where we've got something materializing. Where there is no vision, the people perish. I fully believe that. And we have hopes and dreams, but I don't think we have a vision because the vision is not complete until it's written down and the runners who see this vision can then take it and run with it. There's nothing to run with right now. So we're throwing money into the wind and expecting the wind to deliver it wherever it needs to go. When we have a mail system where we can throw a stamp on it and address it and send it directly where it needs to go. And without having so said plan, we're just throwing money into the wind. And I don't want to throw money into the wind. I was elected to make wise decisions and not to just throw away all caution and to be a voice for the people. And I don't want the people to think that I in this seat, can't speak for everybody else, but I in this seat am just throwing money away. I want us to make wise and sound investments. So if we can come up with some sort of plan or some kind of thing, and I don't want to belabor the time any longer because I feel like we've kind of berated you and we went off on multiple tangents. So, but I would like us to have some sort of plan in place to where we can all sit down and look at it either together or at our own leisure and say, okay, we can hit this, we can hit that, or we can't or won't do this. The other thing is we talked about the TIF district. The TIF district has applied some funds to a lot of this project. Where are the rest of these funds going? I understand it's PDA and they've got other projects. I fully understand that. But I'd love to hear about where those funds that are, how they're allocated and how they're allocated to you, specifically for this project, to know where we take the taxpayer dollars that are budgeted and how we take those funds and disperse those to you in comparison, contrast, and cooperation with those PDA funds that are coming from that TIF district. I said a lot. Again, don't want to belabor the time. Watch the recording. I guess.
Well, I think one thing on my side is I'm on your side, and I'm on the side of our community as well. I'm a neutral party. So I'm also on the side of developers to be able to bring development and help our communities. I'm here to say today that I can't move forward on a project that was given to me on behalf of the city because we facilitate it. This is not our project. We are facilitating it. We're making sure it happens, if that's the will of you. If it is not, I don't want to spend more time on it, honestly. And then an announcement would have to be made that the city does not want to move forward on it. It would not be our announcement, but it would be, because we can't move forward because we don't have the funds to do the next steps that we were.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you. The city does not want to do the project. The city wants to do the project.
Okay.
However, though, the city needs to know the steps in which the project will be completed, because if we don't know that, again, we're just throwing money at something aimlessly. This is why I believe this is the sentiment of everybody up here.
Right, and it
because
looks like
because we
everyone would
keep
have been
talking about things and things do not happen. Businesses keep opening and shutting down. Now, that's not your fault. That's not anybody on this council's fault. Really, it's the fault of a lot of the citizens because we don't go and support those businesses, right? However, though, certain projects like this, it's asinine to think that we're going to throw money at the problem and the problem's going to resolve itself when we don't know what we're throwing money at. I agree with you. This is a great project. You don't got to tell me it's a great project. I see and I know it's a great project, but I need to know, how do we materialize this project? If I don't know how to move it forward, I don't want to throw $35,000 at just some piece of paper that I don't know who it's going to. That's not really my job to know who it's going to. Maybe it is because I didn't sign an NDA. But if I do sign an NDA because I'm a council member, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So regardless, right? But I'd love to know, what is the step after the NDA? What is the step that gets a bulldozer out there? What is the step that gets sewer line out there, electrical out there? What are the steps? Again, I don't want to give you $30,000 to type up a letter.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I don't want to move forward because I don't believe in it. And if you want to poll us, maybe that's the best step to go, but
Yeah,
I would not vote to spend $35,000.
Okay, yeah, I do think in the interest of time, one more
One
quick.
more, I got
Yeah.
to be real quick. Did
Yeah.
you approach PDA about paying for this? They paid for the market analysis.
I have not. I talked to Brent and we decided that this is what I was going to do. But if we aren't moving forward, I would like at least someone at the city to make that announcement so that we've put a lot of work into this.
I apologize if I'm a little too passionate or exuberant in my delivery of
That's
what I
actually
said.
why I'm here. Our next steps were, we were told we want project development. We did that. We produced that. So I guess if you're feeling like nothing was produced, we got Jonathan O'Neill to produce a project for us. Then the next step was feasibility. If that feasibility did not show that this could work out, the next step would have been me coming to you saying this was bad. It came back good, so I came back to you and told you it came back good.
So hold on. So we got concept delivery, not project delivery.
Right, but this is the next step to get us to that.
The concept comes first, right?
Absolutely.
And then
Concept comes first.
feasibility, and then
Yeah.
we have to market it to investors to see
But
if
to
they're.
your point, Corey, or Councilmember Mangum, Corey, I think there's probably, absolutely, obviously, there's been a breakdown in the communication to this project with the city.
Yes.
And having that open and honest dialogue with the city. So you, as a council, have a very good understanding of what this project is. And that's part of why I push to have Portneuf Valley Development come here to talk with you, because this is where it will live or die, is here with the city council. And so, obviously, there's a lot of question marks in your minds as to whether this is, one, even a viable project. And that's a discussion that we need to have with each of you and to find out what your concerns are and how do we address those concerns. And obviously, from what I'm seeing is people aren't prepared to move forward with this next steps because you're uncertain of what pathway are we actually on. And I think that's what we need to do is to step back and regroup and let's get some real education as to what this is and what it means for the community. What concerns do you have? How do we address those concerns? And then provide you a framework and a roadmap on how this would move forward if we move forward with it. And I think that's what you're
Yeah,
essentially
and we've
saying.
had these discussions for the last over a year. We've felt very much, while people talk to us privately in our office on one-on-ones, we have felt like this communication in front of council, we were told open meeting, we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that. But essentially, I contacted my lawyers and he's like, you're not an employee of the city, but it is not in any way a breach to be able to educate you guys on what we do. And that's where, with the new mayor, I've mentioned this to Mayor Dahlquist, I felt like opening that gap was super important because we get a lot of guff on the back end that we're not saying anything, but we're trying to say something to the right entities, to you guys and to everyone. And that's, I told Brent, I'm like, this is the next step in that phase that you might not understand. The rest of it, I get that. Cause like Mayor Blad was like, okay, so what's the next step? And this was it. But I told Brent, I would like to, if we're not going to move forward on this project, one, the public needs to know. And then two, I can't do anything else on this project right now and I'll work on my other projects.
Okay, sure, then we need to wrap it up.
Yeah. Again, we don't not necessarily want this to happen. So I don't think there's a reason to put some kind of press release out there to say we don't want this to happen. I think just postponing and pausing for a little bit, this is a good 10-year project
Yeah.
to see its
Maybe
fruition, right? So it's not that there should be a statement out there that the city doesn't want to see it happen. You also got to take into consideration, you got several new council members.
Yes.
You're not dealing with the same council and the same mayor you're dealing with before.
Right.
And so re-educating is always going to be a huge key. And so I think we end this on the note that same thing, I think me and Brent were kind of speaking the same thing as coming up with some kind of plan that we can tangibly see exactly what we're getting and what steps we have to
With
take.
costs estimated.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and re-educating is fine, but what I'm hearing a lot of is just like seeing results. I don't think that, maybe some of that's education, but
Yeah.
it's not, oh, we need more educated. I'm hearing
No, for sure.
we're not seeing the progress.
For sure. And that's where the steps come in too, right? Is if I understand what the steps are, I can, because I hear you say, I'm holding these developers to the fire, but who's holding you to it, right? And not, whatever.
Okay, in the interest of moving on, we have this in front of us, the request for the money for that marketing book of $35,000 that.
Mayor?
Sure.
So the intent wasn't to have a vote on that today. It was to bring
Okay.
it back at a later council. We just wanted to make you aware of it. I think
That's
based.
how we would ask
Yeah.
for funds going
Based on the
forward.
conversation that we've had, I think we'll just make sure we have those communications and if we decide to move forward at a later date, we'll make those arrangements.
And, just trying to get a feel of the appetite of the council, and maybe we're, we've heard all that and beating a dead horse there, but, so I don't know if I hear a consensus yet on the outlay is amenable to the council yet, so,
The consensus I'm gathering is that we would like to see, okay, the next step is the marketing M&A, then what's the next step and how much does that cost? Then we need to ask for a $750,000 grant to do a study about sewer and water. That step comes in, and then this step, and then this step, and then we bulldoze, right? So I think that would be a very helpful next step.
And And in the meantime, I heard someone say, consider asking PDA if they would be willing to help with some of this cost too.
Okay.
Okay. All right, with that, we will move on. Thank you very much. Okay, Cindy, thank you for hanging in forever here. We've got agenda item number 6, proposed utility billing code updates that Cindy Robbins, our utility billing director, proposing a couple of updates to the policy.
I am, and thank you, and welcome, and it's great to see you all. And the door was open for me a little earlier with the airport about the ordinance, so there we go. This isn't even a shock. Yes, it went through our legal department first and everything, so what I'm bringing for you, I'll give you a short history of our ordinance. Back prior to, well, in 2015, we were looking at the rate of our deposit along with how we were going to determine that. And then we had some council discussion, and some council wanted us to check credit reports, which would have been my office pulling people's credit reports. Thank you. And to determine the good credit and who and how we would decide who would pay what for a deposit. And after much discussion, thankfully, the council did vote that we would, starting in October 2016, we went to a flat rate of $150. And the change, another change was it was going to remain on the account till the account finalized. And so one of the council members wanted the wording, payment of a deposit may be required as determined by the utility billing director based upon credit reporting left into the ordinance. And that's a little confusing right now when people are questioning whether they have to pay a deposit because they feel they have the good credit and everything. I can tell you during the almost 10 years since this deposit requirement has been in effect, it has proven to be the right decision that was made for the flat rate. And one of the examples, I'm going to tell you the biggest one was with our collections. Okay, so the 3 years leading up to October 2016, the average that we were sending to collections was $63,000.
Per month?
To compare the last 3 years that what we're doing right now, it's $24,000. And so having that deposit, it's good, it's on the account till the end. We're only sending a third of what we used to, and that's actually been holding true since 2018. So I feel what was decided, and so that's what I'm asking, is that you guys will realize that language can be removed, because hopefully we're not going to go to credit reporting. We're going to leave it at the flat rate, continue as we have for the last 10 years. It's just cleaning up our ordinance that does not representative how we determine that deposit.
Right. Any
I have
thoughts or
question? There was a constituent who asked about a deceased relative. Does this, I don't know if you are aware of that, but.
I am.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm looking through the red here, but does this stuff address that, or?
Well, our ordinance does address that if, as far as a deposit, if it's the surviving spouse, a divorced account or anything like that, they don't have to have a deposit if they've already had one. It's grandfather, we did have a few of those that came into play. The deceased accounts, what make it really bad for those is the people who has not taken care of their affairs prior to them passing, and so therefore the deed is only in their name. They don't have wills, they don't have things, and so it comes back to us that we cannot continue billing a deceased account. We do give them notice. We try, we'll send out letters, we send out hangers trying to get people to get back to us if they have the wills and everything. It puts, and usually we're working with people for about 3 months before we may have to shut it down, only because it puts us in a bad spot, because someone comes in and their son's living in the house, but the other brother, sister wants their kid to live in the house, and they're trying to use us to shut it down to evict them, and you know how families are gonna be. It's an ugly situation, but, so it comes back to us a lot. So we work with them. Probate can take a long time, so we do just try to, as long as they're working with us, staying in contact with us, we're working with them as long as we can. But if you've got 5 kids fighting right then and none of them are gonna agree, we cannot keep the services on until somebody's been appointed a personal rep or somebody like that.
Thank you. Okay, and yeah, and Cindy and I had a good discussion before she proposed this, that, you know, I'm not in favor of pulling credit reports on everyone before you get the deposit. There's an expense, it's a hassle. I just think that's awkward. So after talking to you, plus we're not even like adhering to that policy now, so for what it's worth, I think it's good, yes.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, and Cindy, I'll be very brief because we've already wasted a lot of time today. Well, we haven't wasted it.
Wasn't wasted.
I enjoyed some of it. But I was wondering, and maybe Rich could help with this. Do you know how much total we have on deposit? Like the total amount of deposits, do you know what that number is that we're
We have
holding?
about 300,000 or,
Okay. And do we just, I assume we're earning interest on those funds?
no, we are not allowed to earn interest on those funds.
It would be included in the LGIP as cash, so it should be, oh, sorry.
State your name.
Yes.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
Could be 6. Or we could, actually,
Rich
I think
Morgan.
we're a lot higher in our deposits, and then we might be up to $1 million.
In finance.
And, yeah.
I have not looked at this.
Yeah.
So my best guess, just knowing how things usually work with accounts and financials, that number would sit on our balance sheet as a liability because we're holding it for them, right? We are gonna give it back to them if they perform. But so yes, all the cash sits in bank accounts and they're all getting interest. So I would say it is actually earning interest.
Okay.
So we might disagree, and I
I'm
would
not
need to
sure
look
that's a
into
good
that.
thing. You wouldn't
Yeah.
I
know
would
for
think that
but-
it is.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if that is happening. I was looking at the administrative rules for public utilities, which it's not us, but public utilities, one, it's defined when they can charge a deposit. But when they do charge a deposit, they have to pay interest along with the deposit back when they give it back. And so I was also wondering, have we ever entertained the idea of refunding deposits after X amount of time of payment, good pay, if they go 2 years and have good payment history? What would your thoughts be on that, Cindy?
Well, we actually used to do that before 2016. We would take a deposit, and then once a year, if they were good credit and they never missed a payment, we would return it. What we found is, and I know that I'll get an eyebrow from you and you as well again, but good credit, bad credit, no credit is the same until the account finalizes, okay? So things can happen. Somebody can pay their bill for 20 years and never miss a payment, but if they pass away, they lose a job or something, and that account finalizes, we still have a balance due, and it's whether someone's gonna pay it or not. So that's where that doesn't play into. The other thing is, if you do run into a bind after we've returned your deposit to you, it's very hard to come up with a deposit then, plus the amount that you owe. So a $250 bill to restore now is $400. And that's a much harder when they're already in a bad situation. That's hard on my staff to have to tell somebody, oh, by the way, besides this amount, you now have to add a deposit on here. And so we had a lot of that going on, and that's hard. That's really hard on us in there. So when we went to the deposit staying on, it's made a big difference and the other reason is, we charge for, our water is based on actual water used. Therefore, we bill a month behind. So the 150 is to try to pay for a 2-month balance. And If people just up and leave, they have their last known address to us to mail a past due is the address we had that they just moved from. So unless they put a forwarding order, they don't get our last bills. So this is why we'll have that tendency when the bills finalize. And that's why we need to have a deposit at the end.
When, sorry, the last question. When someone goes delinquent, do you know, just roughly, what's the average amount that's usually owed when an account goes delinquent and we turn water off?
Summers are a little bit higher than obviously the winter ones. So a normal bill just for the flat rates is an $80 bill. And then you pay for your water at $3.17 per thousand. So how much water? So a bill can be $120. We have circuit breaker programs that they'll be down to $60. As long as, and that's why we try to keep them current. When they go to, when we did go out to 2 months and 3 months, it made it a lot harder as well for people to come up with the money. But normally we're talking, if it's $120 and then they get a 2 month, we may be at $250, we've got a $150 deposit. We never expect it to cover everything, but we're hoping to see it bring it down. If we're not recouping 30% of the end result and $30 go, that's not as bad as when we've had $500 and $600 going.
Okay, got another question over here from Councilman Mangum.
I fully agree with the deposit up front. I'm trying to wrap my mind around the deposit after the fact, though. Because if they're having a hard time paying that bill anyway, and then, hey, you got to come up with the bill plus this deposit, what's the likelihood of actually getting that deposit? And is that more of a stress or a burden now for them to be able to get that service? And I don't know, maybe it's my bleeding heart, but I'm trying to wrap my mind around this deposit after the fact. Like
So are you talking, for my clarification, are you talking once we return it?
No, like if they go delinquent. Because the way that this read, it looked like they go delinquent, now you owe the delinquent payment,
Okay.
and now a deposit on top of the delinquent payment, plus there might be a fee. So like, it's like we're compounding here, and I'm like, man, how do we, because like there might be some little old lady or old guy who's on a fixed income and he came delinquent because the Social Security check came late, and now he's got to pay that delinquent bill. He's got to pay a new deposit now, and there's a fee.
Okay, that's how it used to be when we would return the deposit. Right now, we're taking the deposits up front as soon as they open the account. It stays there, whether they're shut off or anything, the deposit's there, so they're only paying their past due amount. The people that were grandfathered prior to 2016 that do not have deposits on their accounts, we never ask them to go back.
Okay.
The wording is that way because if they happen to get shut off now, after 2000, what we're working now, they will pay the deposit. If they get shut off and they haven't had a deposit on
Right, that's what I'm saying. So like,
right.
Bob is 88 years old, and he goes delinquent because his Social Security check came late. We shut him off and go to turn him back on. Now Bob has to do a deposit, plus he has to pay whatever that delinquent amount was. And I feel like that's kind of hard on people.
It is.
And so is there ever a case by case where we can look at it and be like, I see like where you're at? Because
it's great, and I'll tell you how I try to work around that, because we do have to be fair to everybody. We start getting into that, we're gonna pick because of your age and yours. We absolutely cannot do anything like that. So we send $12,000 to SECA each year. That money is the city's money that comes back to the city to help with people who get a month behind. Because one thing we know is once you get behind, it's very hard to get caught up, right? And so we'll send that to them. Now, the deposit will always go back to the person that paid it if they do pay. It'll go to the final bill or it goes back to the people. So we don't allow like SECA to pay that deposit for someone. But if they've been shut off, Sika can pay that portion of the bill, and they come up with 150. And so it's a way to work around that deposit, like you're saying. They qualify. Obviously, they're having a hardship. They will qualify for that money from Sika.
So follow up if I can. So two things. So how much of that money that we give to Sika is coming back to us, and how much do they keep? Does it carry over every year?
It carries over every year. Sika's been wonderful. They're working with us to administer it because they have the guidelines for wages and things, and so they administer it for us without charging us anything. They are just basically handling the money for us and
My
sending
guess
it
is they
back to
run
us.
out way before the end of the year.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That's was my question is like, is that, because you said it was 12,000 we give them? And so is that 12,000 dispersed by, February, March?
Well, I watch their balance. We keep in touch with them, and I know I have 12,000 annually that I have budgeted for that I can send them.
Okay.
And so it's pretty much towards the end of the fiscal, when we're gonna start our new fiscal year, to make sure that, I have the money as well.
Okay.
And we send it to them then. They give me records of how many households they helped. This is not, we use the money to help people get caught up. So it's really a one time a year. We've had to set guidelines for it. That's why we don't allow them to pay the deposit. It's not to pay a collection account. This is honestly to help people who are, if they're going to be shut off, we send 2 courtesy phone calls letting them know. And at that point, we also let them know, please contact Sika, see if they can help you. We hold off on their shut-offs. Sika's gonna help them. We're not gonna get our money immediately, we know that.
Okay, Councilman Nichols. Sorry, were you finished?
No, my last one was just on payment arrangements. What do payment arrangements look like? How do we stipulate the time frame or the delineation of it has to be paid in 60 days, 90 days? You could pay $5 a month to catch it up. How do we negotiate that?
So our city ordinance says that all of our payments are due and payable monthly. I do not have the authority to extend credit on the city. And so therefore we try to do payment arrangements within a good 2 weeks, because some people get paid this time of the month, some people get paid at this time of the month. And so we're trying to help them move it from when their house payment is due, maybe their car payment. That's what a payment arrangement is due. It is not to carry them, especially where we are a revolving account. It is continually adding more money. And where we have 3 of the enterprise funds we're collecting for, we're trying to get the money into them for their services and things. But I guess it's payment arrangements are just like a shut off. We have people that they still won't. They still just won't pay those either, and they're gonna be shut off. So we try our best, but we are not able to keep taking people out. 6 months, 2 months, let them pay little amounts just because they keep building up. We are a rental city. We don't, homeowners, you don't have to worry about them up and leaving as fast as some rentals. But if we are carrying people out, they can just up and leave.
Okay, go ahead.
Corey just asked my question on payment arrangements.
You
so
got
we're
it
good.
answered.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
How do we define the extension of credit? Like as it relates to payment arrangements? Because it's in the ordinance, right? So how do we define that? So like if I was to be like, hey, I'm late on a bill, all right, you got 6 months to pay it, or we'll increase your bill by, and I don't know if we even have the capacity to do this, but like, let's say hypothetically, right, 6 months or 3 months or whatever, you just add an additional $50 to the bill. Do we view that as extending credit, or do we view that as they're paying the, how do we, does that make sense? How do we define that?
we do not we do not extend people out 3 months, 6 months. Those are not payment arrangements. Our payment arrangements are within the same month. The problem that we run into, we try to get them paid or arranged prior to the next billing. That doesn't always help, because what people will do then is, once our bill goes out and there's a past due and it gives a new date they paid, then they don't have to pay this amount till the next one's due. And you just get down that line continually with, oh no, your form says this isn't due until then. And so keeping it within the month, which is within our city ordinance, bills are due and payable monthly. We do not take payment arrangements out past a month. A lot of times, if they've just paid, it can almost work to see that we've done work, they're closer, but we don't have that ability to, where it's a revolving account constantly.
I have one more question. So people can come in and dispute their bill.
Yes.
They have 30 days to do so.
They
right?
have more than 30. That's one of the reasons I think I
Oh.
was trying to take some of that wording out. You want to dispute your bill, you're welcome to come and dispute your bill. Some of that wording said you had to put it in writing in 3 days before this. We're not doing that. And so that's the other reason I wanted to change some of the wording too.
So 5 months down the road, I'm like, hey, this was wrong.
I get it.
And then, so the city will credit that person back, or?
If you have a leak adjustment and it didn't, you didn't file and you have your repair bill and you want to submit it 5 months later, we do go back. Yes, we do.
Okay.
So, and that's why I didn't want that wording in there, because yeah, we like you to look at your bills. Obviously, you are the ultimate one knowing how you're using your water. But yes, we'll listen to anybody and we'll look at your stuff. And yes.
All right, well, I'll just remind everyone, like, council members are welcome to go talk to Cindy at any time about all this. But what's the feeling on the proposed changes? Are we feeling satisfactory with moving along the process there?
I would prefer that we, I think it would only be right that we refund deposits after X amount of payment history, but I think I'm in the minority, so that's okay with me.
And that's great. When we were doing that, that's when we were turning 63,000 to collections.
Yeah.
Because we don't have anything at the end, and now we're down to 24, and like I says, that's a direct revenue loss to the city. So it's been a way to curb that.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor,
I understand.
Mr. Mayor.
Before because I hear this, like, we're trying to get the idea here. How does this tie in with the rest of Public Works? Because you're taking billing for the rest of Public Works too, correct? So do they follow
All
this?
billings for, water,
Right.
sewer, and garbage.
So so like sanitation and whatnot, does it all fall within this same guidelines or these same statutes here?
So what happens is, so the water meters we read, we're gonna bill for the water that's on the consumption. WPC's the same way. They have a fixed rate that we're putting on a bill. Sanitation has their garbage containers, et cetera, that they're gonna have on there. We have the normal ones if people want roll-offs and stuff. They let us know, we put that on the bill. So basically, the enterprise funds tell us what we are doing. We're doing their billing for them. My area is how we collect that. That is my responsibility to collect it.
Okay.
And that is where my ordinance states it's due and payable monthly.
Yeah. Okay.
So we work within our own payment arrangements. And
Okay, I want to move on, but just invite the council members that more specific questions, if you can get
Oh,
one-on-one
absolutely. You're
with
always
Cindy.
welcome.
So,
yeah, I
okay.
like coffee. I like that.
For sure. Okay.
Like water.
But
Yeah,
I think both of us need to look, because I've always been under the understanding that we cannot hold a deposit to make interest on it. I have always been told that. So let me look into that for you and let you know,
I'd
because
appreciate that.
that's what we tell everybody. No,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
not why
Would
we're
be good
doing
to
it, is to
clarify.
make,
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, thank you guys.
Okay,
I know
thank
we're-
you.
Thanks.
All right, agenda item 7, grant policies and procedures manual. Looks like there's some proposed revisions there from the grants finance department. So Christine is joining us.
Oh my God, it's 1.
Sure, the right one. All right. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Christine Howe, and I'm the Grants Manager. The Finance Department has been undergoing a review of their financial policies and recently presented the Grant Policy and Procedure Manual to me. This policy and procedure manual was adopted, oh, the slides are not here. Excuse me for a moment. Must have the old PowerPoint here. Let's see if it shows up. There it is. So these policies and procedures were originally adopted in October of 2018, and upon initial review, there were several updates that are needed so that they align with our current process. The purpose of these policies are to guide our internal process for applying for grants, accepting grants, and managing the grant-funded projects, and also ensuring compliance with any local, state, or federal requirements. We want to be in alignment with GFOA standards as well as the federal grant requirements, specifically 2 CFR 200, which require you to have written policies and procedures. So I wanted to just highlight the changes. The document I provided you has the redlined version of the policies and procedures, but that is kind of challenging to read, so I've just distilled the sections into the PowerPoint here so it's easier to follow along and hopefully move through rather quickly. So in the introduction section, the major changes here included defining the term grant. There were a number of terms in there related to grants that we receive, either competitive grants and entitlement funding or block grants. We also added special purpose funds or funds for a restricted purpose. And so this was to capture any of those things that serve as a grant but are not specifically maybe a competitively applied for. So if we were to get a settlement funding or an appropriation through another state agency, it would apply to those funds as well, so that council is aware and treating those as they would any new kind of new unanticipated funding that were to come into the city. We also added language to define the source of grants and then the term grant or project throughout the policy document, just for ease of following along. In the conflict of interest section, we mostly simplified this. It had more explicit language that was the exact language mirroring some of the policies that grant terms and conditions may reference. So instead, we reference the city's conflict of interest policy. Therefore, if it changes in, say, the personnel policy handbook, we don't have to also update the language in this policy. It just refers to it. Similarly with state code and federal provisions. A lot of the bulk of the changes fell into the roles and responsibilities sections. So I'll go through each of those a little more in detail. For the mayor and city council, we wanted to make sure that this section reflected our current practices. The old policies didn't explicitly state what the role of the mayor and city council was in the grant application process. But where we have all applications go before city council for approval, we wanted to ensure that was included in the policy and allow council to authorize both approval of the submission of the grant application and acceptance. You all are very familiar with the authorize the mayor to sign any and all pertinent documents subject to legal department review. I think that's on every council agenda item. So we wanted to make sure the policies reflected that authority of yours to be able to do that during the grant application process. The old policies did not include a grants division. The grant division didn't exist at the time that these policies were adopted. And so many of the roles and functions that the grants division conducts now were actually within the finance department functions in the old policies and procedures. So essentially we moved those responsibilities into the grants division and added the finance department functions, adjusted those to be more of our kind of internal financial controls and processes that they undergo. So the grants division changes include application preparation and submission compliance with any agreements and terms, and ensuring that other single audit or audit requirements are met. So it was essentially creating that role within the policies and procedure, and then making sure that the functions that were being conducted by Finance Department and are now in the Grants Division are in that section. And as I mentioned, we updated the Finance Department responsibilities, and those align with, as I mentioned, GFOA standards, any other requirements, and so the functions that the finance team are actually conducting. The other department specifically called out in the roles and responsibilities, it's the legal department. They conduct the review prior to submission to mayor and city council for grant applications, and so we just wanted to make sure that that language was still included in there, and legal department's role is really to ensure that we can legally comply with the types of applications that we may be submitting. And finally, the department heads, this section was updated but was still included in the old policies and procedures, so there weren't too many changes there. It primarily included coordination with the grants division, and then just ensuring that adequate resources and budget are there so that when the departments go to apply for the grant application, we're prepared on the resource and staff side to be able to implement these projects if awarded. So those were all of the role and responsibility changes. More on the process side, we updated the grant application cycle to make it more reflective of the major steps within a grant application cycle and kind of distilled these down. So there's all the pre-award steps, which include kind of the pre-application work that we would do internally, such as ensuring that there's enough funding for the type of project, all the departments are aware, and the application can be put together appropriately. It goes through legal department review. And then, of course, the application, which comes before council and the mayor for approval. And then just language about any pre-award expenditures. So we don't want folks expending funds if the grant doesn't allow for pre-award. And the next steps in the process are the awards. So this talks about notification and acceptance. That's essentially when Grants Division will ensure that all the proper forms, terms and conditions are reviewed, and those cycle through legal to the mayor's office for approval and submission to the granting agency. And then post-award is actually managing the project and any reporting. And then, of course, closeout. We ensure that we want to be explicit about closeout compliance, and then, of course, any record retention requirements, as there's typically an auditable period on the grant after it's closed out. And within this policy document, there were some appended forms. So our intention is to update these forms so that they are available on our intranet, our internal citywide system, so that folks can easily fill out the form when they're ready to do the grant application. And it asks for all of the information we need in the pre-application phase, both finance would need and the legal department and any department heads who are involved. And then we will update the Appendix B, which is the notification and acceptance form. And this will help streamline the process so that when we find out that we received some funding, everything that needs to be set on the accounting side can go through this form, and we can get everything streamlined. And we'll ensure that these align with the new OpenGov software that we've been working on. And so when that grant module is available for OpenGov, we'll ensure that all of this data kind of matches those fields so that we're not duplicating efforts and everything can kind of feed into one centralized place. Right now it essentially lives in emails and Excel spreadsheets, so this will help us be a little more centralized. And then finally, we'll create a few flow charts. We'll update the existing ones that were in there so that new staff will be able to see how the grant process works and any point in the steps where they have to be involved, whether they're legal department, finance, or department heads. So I am available for any questions on these. We did, like I said, finance brought these policies to the grant division. We worked to redline the documents and make edits, and then we also presented those back to the finance team for their review. And we have a grant management team that meets about monthly, and so we circulated the policies to those folks, the ones who are working kind of day-to-day on grants, and then also to the department heads for any feedback, so that we could make sure everything's a little more comprehensive and folks got a chance to look at it. And now we're presenting it to you all for any feedback, and then we'll hopefully bring it for adoption.
When you say you've had our finance department look at it, do you mean our current finance department with our current CFO?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for working so hard on this. Those are thorough updates. That's not easy.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know it's not as heated as parks and
Policies and
road
procedures
planning,
a little
but-
bit drier
but thank you.
of a topic.
Yeah. Maybe you're
Got some
being,
questions if you want.
yeah, 3.5 hours into the agenda, maybe you're like lucky spot. You don't get a lot of questions.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, agenda item 8, proposed repeal of city code fire prevention and safety regulations regarding daycare operations and children group treatment center operations. Got a representative from the fire department here.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thanks for seeing me today. I am Dean Bullock, Assistant Chief of Fire Prevention and Public Safety. The state legislature last year enacted House Bill 243, which would set out statewide standards for the protection of daycares and children in those daycares. Section 39-1109, Section 2 states, no fire standards developed pursuant to this chapter shall be more stringent than the standards contained in the International Fire Code as adopted by Idaho. Currently, our city ordinance 15.12.140 is more stringent on 3 different items. 1, fire alarms and smoke detectors. 2, the number of exits. And 3, emergency lighting required in the daycares. Because sorry, I have a loud voice. House Bill 243 says that we can't be more strict. We are asking the mayor and city council to repeal ordinance 15.12.140 so that those items are no longer more strict than what is allowed by House Bill 243.
Non-starter for me, so
Okay.
a no discussion.
Sure.
I just wanted to be clear that last year, this House bill removed any control or governance of daycare centers or childcare centers from city.
We still have the ability to inspect those daycares. Every daycare is inspected every year by our fire inspector. That bill does say that we can do it in accordance with the IFC regulations.
But we can no longer do it according to the city code regulations that were more stringent
Yes.
than the International Fire Code regulations.
Correct.
And therefore, we really must remove that from city code.
Yes.
Thank you.
We still do, our every daycare is inspected every year according to the IFC. I promise you that. It's just we do have 3 items that are more strict than what state law allows. This has been through our legal department. There is one other city ordinance 15.12.145, which addresses child group treatment center operations. We're asking to repeal that as well, which would still be in line with the IFC.
Okay. Just,
This is coming to us on a later meeting to vote on, correct?
Yes, it'll be, I think, in March, city council in March.
okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys, but I'm so livid with the state that I can't. So.
We're worried about it, but we can still inspect per IFC, and our fire inspector is very good at her job. We are not allowing anything less than IFC, I promise you that.
Thank you, and I share Councilman Paulson's lividity with this bill that passed last year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
On this and other proposed bills this year, got a pattern going on.
5 years.
Okay, well, thank you. It sounds really straightforward. You're just adhering to the state, what they're saying.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Thank you for hanging in there for so long.
Thank you, Dean.
Yes, no problem.
Okay, and agenda item number 9, I'm gonna ask that we skip that in the sake of time. We'll take about a 5-minute break, and then there is an executive meeting we have in the Paradise Room, so, yes. Okay, and then this is officially adjourned. Okay, thank you.